welcome everyone to the 5th of November meeting of the Sustainability Advisory Committee. I think if Robin Tyner should be attending, but I had received no apologies. So welcome everyone, full house so far. Looking at the minutes of the last meeting, 1st of October, did everyone have an opportunity to read through? Have any comments? Everyone? Good.
Yep, all good.
All good? Yep. Shall we move to...
Move to accept.
I second.
Second. Okay.
Here it comes.
Minutes accepted. Hello, Robin. We have full house. Did you have any... Sorry, did you have any comments on the minutes? No. Okay, so they're approved. All right. So we have a fairly full agenda. The next thing on the agenda was public comments. Were we having any? Sally was coming later. Did we have any public comments from the floor as yet?
Did you want to do the presentation first?
We can do the presentation first. Okay, so we had Eileen Flockhart approach us to do a presentation on Exeter trees. So do you want to take the floor and do the presentation? And Jen Martel, sorry, thank you.
I'm gonna, so I'm here with Eileen. We're
Okay.
kind of working together on this, but I'm gonna do the presentation. My name is Jennifer Martel. It's nice to meet all of you who I haven't met before. Just for full disclosure, I'm an alternate on the planning board.
Okay.
So I'm here tonight with Eileen Flockhart. Thank you very much for putting us on the agenda. I know you do have a full agenda and I will try to be brief. So I'm here tonight to talk about trees. When it comes to sustainability, trees are a heavy hitter. They are a renewable resource that provides countless environmental and economic benefits. They help mitigate the effects of climate change, sequester carbon, soak up stormwater, improve property values, etc. But I know that you all know this. I'm kind of preaching to the choir, so I'm not here to tell you about how great trees are. What I am here to tell you about is some of the tools that our group has discovered that is going to help, that could help our town and your group specifically include trees in the sustainability agenda.
Mm-hmm.
So someone's sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago. I really like this quote from Warren Buffett. I'm sure he was referring to the magic of compounding interest or something along those lines, and not necessarily about trees, but I think it's a really, kind of simple reminder that the built environment around us exists because people a long time ago took some efforts to plan it. And it's something to kind of think about as we move through. I'm here kind of representing the tree team. Eileen and I are both here representing the tree team. Who is the tree team? We're kind of an ad hoc group of residents that have started getting together a few months ago. Because we have kind of a shared interest in ensuring that the beautiful urban forest that people a long time ago have created in Exeter is maintained and expanded for future generations. And we're trying to figure out kind of what the best ways are to do that. So we've been meeting mostly in Eileen's kitchen early in the morning over coffee and kind of discussing and researching and talking to town staff and also tree experts kind of throughout the state about what our town is doing to manage trees and also what other municipalities do to manage trees. So there's a few things that we've kind of started getting going as initiatives, one of them has already started and one we're kind of starting ourselves. So the first one is the public tree inventory, which already exists. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that. And the second is Tree City USA. So what is the public tree inventory? This was actually an inventory that took place in the summer of 2017 by an intern in the Public Works Department. She was a GIS engineering tech intern. And it uses a software that's called iTree, which many of you may have heard of or even used. It's a free software that's available online that basically allows you to go around and tag all of any kind of group of trees, and you can label it, and then you can run reports on it. So this took place in the summer of 2017, and part of the reason this took place was for insurance purposes. If a big storm comes through, a tornado or something crazy like that, hurricane, and wipes out a bunch of trees, if the trees are already down and there's no record of what the trees were, the town only gets credit for the chip value of the trees after they've been chopped up. Whereas if you have an inventory, you can say, hey, this is what we had, more specifically. I'm gonna go over some of the highlights of the report, but if you would like to see the full report, our group does have a Facebook group called Exeter Tree City USA. So if you go on Facebook and search for Exeter Tree City USA, or I think you can use the @Exeter Tree City symbol, you can actually download the whole, or you can see the whole report as like a series of images.
Okay.
And please like our page, and then you'll get updates too. So this is just kind of a little bit of a overview of what is in that survey. So the surveyed area is basically the urban compact area, so it's the area in orange, which is basically mostly downtown. This works kind of funny, that area there. And it's just the public trees mostly that were surveyed. So trees, street trees, trees in parks areas, and trees in our public spaces, town-owned property. 849 trees were surveyed, and this survey was presented to the select board on September 11th of 2017. As I mentioned, iTree is a free software. So what were the findings? There were a lot of findings. I'm just kind of highlighting 3 of them. One thing that I found was really interesting is most of the trees are maple species, and which, you know, maples are great trees and we love them, but it's a little dangerous to have too many of one kind of tree, because if you start to have, for example, if you have too many ash trees and then you have a pest that comes through that can wipe out all of your ash trees, then a huge percent of your trees comes down. So the survey does kind of point to, when we're planting trees, we should look at a diversity of species. I think one thing that's really interesting is the report calculated that Exeter's public trees provide $145,637 value to residents and business owners. And that's broken up by energy savings, aesthetic and property values, carbon dioxide reduction, air quality improvement, and stormwater runoff reduction. And you can take a look at the survey on our Facebook page to find out kind of where those numbers come from. And finally, the age distribution of the trees is kind of, we have a lot of mid-sized trees, which indicates there was probably a lot of tree planting that had happened 30 to 50 years ago. Definitely fewer old growth trees and not very many new growth trees. This survey took place before the 40 or so trees were recently planted on Lincoln Street. So that would, you know, if we redid the survey, it would definitely change the numbers a little bit. But that's something to consider, that consistent planting of new street trees and kind of a concerted effort at planting new trees and protection of old growth trees should be a priority. So here's some of the overall benefits of iTree. It quantifies the benefits of public trees. It allows for targeted investment in maintenance and new tree planting. It's easier to identify potential threats. So now that we know that emerald ash borer, for example, is in Exeter, we can quickly look at the survey and say, okay, where are these ash trees exist in our town, and target, you know, say like, okay, we want to really keep these. Let's target them for protection from that. It's useful in grant applications. If you want to plant new street trees, it's helpful to show that you have them. It provides a known value, like I mentioned, for insurance purposes, and it's free software. So I think one of the things with iTree kind of moving forward is the survey is only as good as it's already outdated. I mean, 2017, it doesn't have a lot of new trees. There are trees that have come down from storms and everything. So maintaining that survey is going to be important moving forward, so we can continue to reap the benefits from it. And the other initiative that I wanted to mention to you is Tree City USA. So Tree City USA is an Arbor Day Foundation initiative. It's a nationwide program, and 3,400 municipalities across the country participate in Tree City USA, or are tree cities. Basically, to be a tree city, you have to meet 4 core standards. You have to have a tree board or department, have a community tree ordinance, spend at least $2 per capita on urban forestry, and celebrate Arbor Day. The picture to the right is the Arbor Day celebration that our town celebrated on Friday, October 25th of this year. It was our first Arbor Day, so we checked that one off. And so the tree team is currently working on those other 3 core standards, and we feel pretty confident that we're gonna be able to meet them and actually put in an application by the end of this year and hopefully become a tree city. And the benefits, I know, are really tiny and hard to read, but there's a lot of benefits to being a tree city. It's really good kind of community engagement. It shows that the community can get together and, you know, rally behind an environmental cause. You know, trees obviously help reduce costs and all of those economic benefits that I've already gone over, cuts energy consumption, boost property values, build stronger neighborhood ties to your community. It shows that you honor community and demonstrate commitment to healthier environment. It's, you know, community pride. You get a sign at the entrance to your town that says that you're a tree city. It's also helpful for things like grant applications, again, in terms of tree planting. So, I mean, this is kind of how far we've gone so far. We're kind of a new team that's gotten together, and we're trying to figure out how we're going to integrate into the town government, and what we can do to support town government, and kind of how the different groups or how the different boards can kind of support these efforts. So we wanted to sort of come out to the Sustainability Committee tonight and introduce ourselves and just say, this is what we're doing. These are the tools that we've found so far. I think there's a lot more to figure out. These are our next steps: to adopt a townwide tree ordinance, establish a tree board or commission, submit the application for Tree City USA, and establish procedures for updating iTree. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Please go to our Facebook page. And thank you very much for any support you can provide us.
Thank you. Thank you, Jen.
I have a question, actually. Can I
Yeah.
I didn't see it on there. I'm just wondering if one of the buckets, maybe the benefits to the town, is how trees work with stormwater runoff, because I know there's stormwater systems that involve new trees and like how that, you know, I'm not a scientist, I don't know how exactly it works, but I've done the layouts of the graphics for the books that talk about it, and there's a lot of trees incorporated into new thinking of how to manage that, so.
Yeah, and that's definitely, definitely a huge benefit. It's one of those things that's a little bit hard to quantify because, you know, there's 2 ways that trees help with stormwater. One is that it actually, you know, the water kind of falls on the leaves and it sits there. So there's all these surfaces for the water to sit on and then evaporate off of, so it never hits the ground. And then once it does hit the ground, if it soaks into the ground, then the trees can suck up that extra water. And some trees drink it up really well and are really great at doing that. So it's a huge benefit if incorporated into a stormwater management system, for sure.
Yeah, especially like Norway maples suck a lot of, I noticed those were on your, and those are invasive though, aren't they?
Those
So
are
that becomes
invasive. We're not
issue.
allowed to plant those anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately. But there's lots of other great ones. I mean, maple species particularly are very good at that, but there are others.
And then the other thing I just wanted to mention is it seems like a great opportunity for just PR for the town, for encouraging families here, and like just one of the many things we do as a concerned community to make it attractive and, you know, healthy and all that, so.
Yeah,
it's
I'm
great.
glad you mentioned that because at the Arbor Day, for anyone who wasn't able to make it to the Arbor Day event, it was in front of Lincoln Street School, and the 2 of the 4th grade classes actually put together these amazing presentations about trees, and just hearing, like, you know, 9-year-olds singing about trees. There were songs, there were poems, there were chants, there were cheers. It was really amazing, and they it was kind of inspiring to see, like, you know, kids care about trees.
That's great. Well, thanks for all your work on it. Appreciate
you.
it. Thank you, Eileen.
Can I just have a question? So in terms of how often would the iTree need to be sort of updated in terms of the report that obviously was done in 2017. So going forward, how often do you think it would need to be carried out to keep it?
That's a really good question, and I have that same question. I don't know if there are any guidelines that say, we recommend for insurance purposes that you update it every 5 years, or if it's something that is just kind of, I don't know, I mean, I think we have to talk about how that takes shape. Like, I
Okay.
can almost see like a group of volunteers, and each one takes like a section, and they sort of update it continually. Because it is free software that you can just go online and log in and update the inventory. If we could train like a group of volunteers to do it, then it could just be like an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
Like, a tree comes down, you update it. So I'm not sure. I don't know if
Okay.
there's like a guideline on how often we should. I know that we can't just, so far I think it just kind of, it was done, it was presented to the select board, and it's just been sitting on a shelf. It's not even on the town website yet, so.
From
I think it's-
2017?
Yeah, so I think it's something that, not that many people even know existed, so we were really excited when we found it. And so, it's a great asset, like that's.
I think,
continue.
yeah, I mean, so looking at it, I think in terms of, for house development, all those kind of information, to have that information as to what trees should be planted, would be very useful,
For sure.
across other departments in terms of, what needs to be replanted when certain trees come down in the storm, which we recently had. Any other questions? Yes?
You have to go up to the.
You have to go up to the podium.
Sorry. Get it on mic.
I know that trees are very important for helping water bodies stay clean and just like maintain the levels, and it's very good for that ecosystem area. So I was wondering if you looked into that for the Exeter River specifically.
I personally have not specifically done that research. I'm guessing it's out there, but, yeah, for sure. Trees soak up pollutants. A lot of plants do. So it's just a question of, how do you, and if you're talking about like an engineered solution to help clean water through trees, I think that exists and probably, could happen, some design.
Anyone else? Questions?
A couple of quick ones. And related to, I was going to ask the same question about the frequency of updating iTree. In related question to that, do we know how long that first survey took? I know it was done by an intern. Do you have any idea whether it was a month or a week or all summer or a full year? It seems like a lot of trees were counted and tagged.
It was
Okay.
a summer project.
Took a summer? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if she worked every day or if it was
Okay.
like 3 days a week. but
Do you know
it
what
was a
department it
summer.
was organised through? Who organised it?
The DPW.
That's interesting.
And there's some, like I said, like if we do have people, we need to do some training. Like there's some questions about some of the species that were actually, there's like a tree in there called hedge maple, which I'm not even sure exactly what she was calling a hedge maple. It's sort of a common name for a tree. So it would be good to actually, if people are going out and doing this, make sure they know what trees what and know how to identify trees, if they don't know what it is.
We actually have Jay Perkins, Russ, you want to speak to that? Yeah. Jay Perkins is the tree warden from the DPW.
Yeah, it's really, so for those of you who don't know me, I'm Russell Dean, I'm the town manager. Good evening. I don't think I've actually had a chance to talk with some of you directly, but a lot of you I have. Yeah, Jay Perkins, who's been part of this group that has been assisting, is actually the town's tree warden. He's also our highway superintendent. So that his full-time role is highway superintendent, but he is also the tree warden, which means he has statutory responsibilities under the state RSAs for care of trees in the public right-of-way. And actually, it was under Jay's leadership a few years ago, and Jennifer Perry, our Public Works Director, that Tori Brooks, our intern that we got from UNH, came in and did this public tree inventory, which is a very nice tool for us to have. At the time it was done, it was actually the first time we had done something like this, so it was a really great exercise that we went through to sort of benchmark what in that particular area where, where the trees were and what the makeup was and that sort of thing. So I think whenever we do something like this, and we paid her, I think it was a temporary wage amount, it might have been like $7,500 for the summer, something like that. And whenever we do something like this, idea that we have is that for this and maybe other things like it, we try to do it every, update it every 5 years or so. So I think left to our own devices, that's kind of how we would look at something like this. It's a couple of years old at this point, but if we, as we strive to do things, if we can give it an update every 5 years, I think that's really what we try to do. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight.
One last other question, actually, regarding Tree City USA. It might sound like a strange question, but in speaking with other municipalities or cities that have taken on Tree City USA and pursued this, I mean, certainly there's all the benefits you listed. One of the criteria, of course, is the per capita spending on that. Outside of that, because anytime you get into budgets, that can be a pinch point for things moving forward or not, and whether it's been planned for or not. I'm curious if there were other things that you discovered that people, I mean, I have a hard time imagining who would be against Tree City USA, but I was wondering if you ran into any other thoughts from other municipalities that, or other people that have pursued this that were roadblocks for moving forward.
I don't know if I can answer that question. I know I'm might punt this to Dave Sherfels because he has much more experience with Tree City. His work in Somersworth.
I had a community, I submitted 11 applications, 11 years in a row as Tree City USA.
Okay.
And I know other communities, I've never heard anything negative or blowback from it. And
Great.
the $2 per capita, it's easy to achieve that because it includes a lot of like pruning or, utility, Unitil goes out and clears lines, that can be used, so. There's generally.
You get to that pretty quick,
You
yeah.
spend it anyway, it's not like it has to be an additional budgeted item that needs to be approved. You're spending it anyway.
Okay, very cool, great.
And even the ordinances, it sounds like kind of an onerous list, like, oh, you have to have a committee and an ordinance. We're thinking that we could probably, and we haven't approached the Conservation Commission with this, but we could probably have like a committee under, the Conservation Commission could kind of be the tree committee, if they're so willing. And the ordinances are kind of already in place and would be relatively simple to, there's statewide ordinances for trees already that we adhere to, so it would just be a matter of kind of pulling things out. So a lot of this is stuff that we're already doing, it's really just kind of formalizing it.
Interesting, okay, great.
Do you have a time?
I have a couple of comments separate from these. The first, a little advertising. Riverwoods has achieved recognition for quite unique, really, arboretum, which they have developed and are continuing to develop. Just a little local plug. And the other thing is, I think we've been surprised to realize from the California fires that we have to rethink our old policy of leaving old trees and tree trash to lie in the woods. And this would pertain to our Southeast Land Trust holdings around here, because we do encounter extreme drought. And at that time, the fire hazard is very great. And one of the things that they have realized is accelerated the fires in California is because they have been preserving it, thinking that was a good thing to do. And we have too, as far as I know. Southeast Land Trust, I think, preserves. So we've got to rethink that, even in terms of the woods right behind the old part of Riverwoods. And in general, I think we have to become aware of this, that this is becoming and will become more of a hazard, really.
Any other questions? Do you have a timescale by which you wish to?
So the hope is to submit the Tree City application by the end of this year.
Okay.
So those things would be in place. We're not stuck on that, but our understanding is that municipal applications are only reviewed once a year. So if we miss, the end of this year, then we're waiting another year. So that's sort of the push. And the reason why we had Arbor Day in October. And the other next steps, I think we'll just continue, the iTree updates, I think that'll just have to be an ongoing discussion.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I love
Thank
that
you.
method,
Thank
that
you.
maple,
Oh, sure.
Swayze.
I know you've got lots to do. I just wanted to mention that Tree City and the efforts that we're doing right here, in addition to the survey, is the beginning of what we'd like to do, which is why we were sort of hoping to be under your umbrella. And to look at the big picture of how trees fit into the whole sustainability picture of the town, so that anything that we do beyond this is looking at a much bigger picture, having a bigger sense of, as you were saying, what kind of trees go where if somebody's going to do a new development, and everything else that pertains to. But finding ways for neighborhoods and individual families to adopt a tree out front. That's happened a couple of times already in different spots around town. So there's all kinds of ways for this to grow, which is what we'd like it to do. But thank you for hearing us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Great to have that.
Yeah, I think this particular initiative really is an example of something that can fit under a lot of departments. DPW brought it up, planning could use, like, it's just, it is sort of a natural sustainability oriented.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
I mean, it fits with the whole theme of the reason we need the sustainability coordinator, because things like this cross Conservation Committee, Energy Committee, you know, the Planning Board, all the boards and committees, which I think, and I know everyone here knows, but was one of the reasons why the whole sustainability coordinator was even proposed in the first place, from people on different boards and committees, recognizing that you needed an overarching coordination structure, which we don't really have now, which we all know from talking to each other. And this is like a perfect example of something that would fit under multiple different places under that overall umbrella of sustainability.
And again, what you said, this, you know, the the survey was done in 2017, and not many people knew that it had happened. You know, it just sat on a shelf, you know, which is,
Exactly.
doesn't help anybody.
And that's frankly how the Sustainability Coordinator Initiative got us started. People on different boards and talking to each other, talking to Kristen, finding out, oh, we have all these studies that aren't on the web anymore and nobody knows about, and who's using them, we don't know, you know, and yeah, it's like orchestrating that type of stuff. So this is a great find, and, you know, one we weren't
Thank
aware
you.
of.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much. Okay, shall we move on? Public comment?
Good evening, Sally Ward. I live on Park Street. And first comment would be what a great thing this is that the tree team is doing. And I think it's a great initiative. I've been a little bit involved, but I think kudos to the efforts that the team has made to this point. And the Arbor Day celebration was fabulous. So I have a more general comment about where we are with regard to sustainability and the Sustainability Advisory Committee and the proposed Sustainability Office, which is, I'm a little frustrated about the length of the movement towards what we voted for in March. And more than frustration, I'm concerned about where we are and how long it's going to take, given the current status quo, to get a sustainability office. And I, just on my way over, I was listening to news analysis about the fact that the U.S. is withdrawing from the Paris Accords, and there were points there that really resonated with how I feel about where we are with sustainability, which is, if we don't do this soon, then we will be losing an opportunity. Things won't work as well, and we won't have the ambition that I think we all want to have with regard to sustainability. So let's just move forward. And I know that you all were, I'm now preaching to the choir here with this group, but I think I want a voice, many of our voices, to be heard in whatever venues seem appropriate in terms of the citizens want to have this, and let's just do it. Let's not slow down the process. And so that's my concern and my frustration, and I'll say it here and I'll say it in other venues, but I understand that there's a process and that we want to do things in a thoughtful and methodical way, but I don't think that thoughtful and methodical way should stand in our way of making progress towards what we all need to be doing. And there's a certain urgency about why we need a sustainability office. And some people don't like the term sustainability. They say that that's confusing. What does it mean? But we all know that what we're talking about is climate change and enhancement of our natural resources. And what do we do as a community to make that happen? And why can't we do it now? If we don't do it now, we wait for another year and another year and another year. And I think that that's, I'm concerned about that. So that's my comment.
That's great. I think probably most of us all agree with you. I think anybody who has any expertise in these fields related to sustainability knows that, or anyone who's ever been in government knows that the easiest way to kill something and delay something is to study it again. And there is a plethora of studies. You 5-minute Google search, you probably come up with lots of them about the economic benefits and business case benefits and just health benefits of moving forward. So I certainly could never come up with a reason to delay. I think it's a matter of leadership. I mean, yeah.
If I may. Thank you. So good evening again. One of the things that I wanted to, before because I do realize that tonight you're probably going to talk a little bit about the position and some of the issues around that with our committee structure. Been engaged in a lot of sustainability pieces of the puzzle in the last couple of weeks. I was able to attend my ICMA conference, which for those of you who don't know is the International City Managers Association. So every year they have an annual conference. The town was good enough to support my going down to Nashville to that. And actually there were a lot of very interesting topics down there that did relate to sustainability. One of them is net zero construction, which I had a chance to learn a lot about, and I thought it was very interesting and certainly something this committee could look at. The general comment I wanted to make is that normally when we have citizen committees established in the town, there's a lot of work that's done on the ground prior to a build-up toward a position, and I understand that because of the cycle that you're really looking at that. But I also wanted to encourage the committee to, and I do actually have something to hand out to you, because as I've looked through, the ICMA actually publishes a lot of sustainability documents, and what they are a reflection of the national trends right now that are out there across the country. And they're actually in a lot of different categories: transportation, land use, environmental and natural resource management, cross-functional resources, they call it, municipal operations. And so I think it would be, and utilities, I'm sorry, I missed one. So these are things that are happening nationwide, and that there are either ordinances or policies or initiatives that are going on across the country. And I thought it was a good idea for the committee to have this information. And also, as you sort of evolve your presence with us, be able to take this and look at it as a committee and say, okay, Town of Exeter, where are we sort of relative to these things? So I'm very interested in hearing what you have to say based upon what the national scene is like and what's happening in municipalities across the country. So I wanted to pick the right spot. I didn't mean to interrupt you with that, but I'm at least going to leave this with you so you can each have a copy and take a look at it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Sally, did you have?
So, just one additional comment, and this has come up in various discussions, and my view is not, my perspective is not a criticism of what Exeter's done. My perspective is what more can we do? So Exeter has done things and has been responsive to the issues, but we can only do so much with the resources that we have. So it's not in any way a criticism of what we've done. It's what more can we do? And I think that that's a sort of a forward way of looking at it. That's how I would present it, and that's my view.
Thank you.
Well, in the interest of moving forward now, and I'm going to let Chetna speak on this too, we want to publicize the Clean Energy Forum, which is being organized for the high school on a week from tomorrow night. They're hoping to fill the high school auditorium. They have a senator and other prominent speakers coming. They're going to have a panel, and then they're going to invite the audience to participate in discussion. And we know that Exeter wants to move forward, and this seems like a chance. We hope many people will come out. I managed to get a bus from Riverwoods, which took a little doing, but we will have bus transport over there. So, and Chetna is going to be the moderator?
Yeah, I want to
So-
be moderator for that. Thanks. So we have, before we move on, I'm conscious of the time, but the panel discussion is next Wednesday at 6 o'clock. It's free. It's open to everyone and anyone at Exeter High School. It's the Clean Energy Forum, and the panel includes the New Hampshire Senator John Morgan, Dr. Mitchell, who's a UNH lecturer, got the Director of Market Development from Revision Energy, and a representative from Liberty Utilities. So that's the panel. And hopefully, as Bev said, that the auditorium should be full. So that's next Wednesday. So I would like to go on to, if that's okay, to the next.
Oh, there's more public comment.
Oh, there's more public comment, sorry.
Paul Royal, 3 Pumpkin Circle, Exeter. Some of you already know me, that I am a little bit involved and try to stay informed in town politics, and it's been a busy and difficult year in some ways, and so I decided to sort of bring myself up to speed. Mm-hmm. So I'm frustrated too, but for different reasons. I wanted to learn more about the Sustainability Committee. I saw the Warren article, I saw people speak to it. I think the ideas were great, but I can remember thinking at the time, while the meeting was well noted, and I think people understood kind of what you wanted to do, and that we're going to create a position which may require, I don't know, the figure was about $50,000 that would pay for itself. So I kind of wanted to see where you guys were. And in doing so, I went to the Exeter town website, which I don't have to tell you, a lot of people do not avail themselves of. There's more talk about pizza than there is about taxes and things like that. The information is available, you just got to go get it. But I did find it frustrating that there were only 2 sets of minutes out there for your meeting, so I started watching some of the videos, which is time consuming to say the least, but as a professional photographer, I can actually edit photos and listen to a video at the same time. But I was a little bit frustrated. So I have some concerns, and I don't want to take your time tonight to have you answer me directly. What I'm concerned about is that the townspeople have a better idea of your goals and getting out there. So not finding everything that I wanted to find on the town website, I actually went to social media, and while I'm not particularly well-versed in social media, I, again, didn't find quite what I was hoping to find. And again, I know I'm late to the party, but a lot of people are going to be late to the party. I don't want to make sure that, I think part of this process is getting people on board, especially since when you came with a Warren article, I can understand the intensity of wanting to get things done, fairly quickly, getting it out there. We'll work it out, as we go. We're so sure that this is a good policy, we will make this work. I get that. But when you do that, an onus is put on you to really perform. And again, I'm not being critical of your committee because there's a lot of things I don't know. Because when I look at the minutes and things like that, I'm not seeing a lot of what I, as a taxpayer, would like to see. But I hate to use that term, and I don't think you can equate everything with cash. Sometimes you just spend the cash for the good, and you don't necessarily have to see those dollars and cents come back hard. Mm-hmm. But we do live in a time where people lean that way, and they expect answers. And not only do people in the community expect answers, and I don't know what the budget committee did a couple of weeks ago. I sort of ran out of time, or I don't even know if it's publicly available. But you need to win budget committees over. You need to win town volunteers over, town employees, select people. All those people got to get on board because they're accountable. And if those people do something and those taxpayer citizens don't feel that, they did their homework, they're in trouble, even though you guys are trying to do all the right things. And I think you are trying to do all the right things. I want to be crystal clear about that. So I think I covered most of the things I wanted to cover. I was a little alarmed that the last meeting I watched was the one that was on October 1st, and you were 17 days away from that budget committee meeting, and you were getting a lot of advice on how to, sort of sell that to the budget committee. And personally, I mean, this thing was passed in March. A lot of groundwork probably should have been done before that, and it's great the tree committee is here tonight, but for somebody like me who's a little bit analytical, I sort of want to see that list in advance. And given that you've, had 5 or 6 months to have that, I think if you have that list of, these are the things we can do, these are the paths of communication that will work, here's the reason we need this person, this is what they're going to do, this is what they're going to follow through with. It's a lot easier for everybody else to make the case. And I'd like to see this be successful. I'm concerned that it may not be successful if you don't get more people on board. Sustainability is hardly a romantic, exciting term. It gets more and more exciting as your water gets dirty and you can't breathe, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So what I'm looking for, as somebody that would like to see this work, is a more concrete affirmation of what you expect from this leader, being able to sell it to the citizens. I'm going to throw out that word taxpayer, because again, I realize you don't have to count for every buck coming back into the coffers. I don't believe that. Sometimes you do things just for the good of the good, pro bono. And yet, there's a bill to be paid, and people expect accountability. So, just as a guy that wanted to bring himself up to speed, that prides himself on trying to stay up with local politics, I want to see you guys be more successful. I think you already know how to do that. And this is not really a criticism, but I did not, from what I saw online, from what was available to me, I did not see the urgency to put together a sale to get this thing done. And I think that's part of where the frustration is coming from. I think you know in your minds mostly what you want, but you've got to be able to put it out there. You've got to be able to sell it. You've got to be able to make it work, because there's going to be metrics down the road. If you pay $50,000 for a parking study and then you spend $500,000 to make it happen, and it sucks, somebody's accountable. If it's great, the problem is nobody cares and nobody sits around and applauds either. But that's the way the world is. So I'm going to close with that. I thank you very much for your time. I thank you very much for your efforts. Go, be successful. I'm an easy sale, and I'm not sold. That's a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you.
I think part of the problem is that we've only been in existence for 3 months?
Yeah.
And so there was no one really to formulate anything until that very, very, very recently. And the other thing is, I think we're discovering that part of our role is to coordinate what's already going on. We have, and not necessarily all of that. I mean, volunteers can do much of it. But you have an energy committee here. You have a river committee. You have the new renovations that are already planning on, the town is already investing in clean energy. You have things to publicize and to bring together and to kind of
And I see that.
continue to push.
And I see that.
Doesn't
And again,
take money to do
I don't want to take up
it.
any more of your time, but that is my concern. Sure. You have all these things to do, and I can't find information myself, and I'm pretty good at it. I can't find out what you've done to bring those things together, and I think if you, again, I'm going to sound like I'm criticizing you, but if you can do
Exactly.
bang-up job of pulling that together. And I'm not saying you should have done this 2 months ago. I'm saying that's what you're tasked with. And it's not that much fun, and I appreciate the work that you've put into it. But I think that's gonna help alleviate some of the frustration that you're feeling, just from the other side. And I came here because, not because I'm against you, because I'm for you. I wanna see you succeed. And I wanted to let you know, because I haven't been in this room before, and because I'm an easy sale, if I'm not sold, there's work to be done. And again, I'm not criticizing you. I'm not sitting behind that desk. I'm not doing the work. I do other things, so I'm not gonna criticize you. That's not my job. I came here purposefully as an outsider to let you know how it looks to me, and I'm on your side.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
I think, no, thank you for bringing that up, Paul, and that has been a concern of ours on the committee, and one of the first things that we mentioned was how do we communicate what we're doing, and what's going on to the public. We're reliant on a town website that, takes time to update because unfortunately, they have to put up a lot of minutes. But beyond that, not that I don't think the website's widely used amongst the community because it's hard to navigate. But besides that point, we have asked and we're waiting to find out if we can in fact have our own social channel, being that it's, 2019 and that's the most relevant way that people get information out. If we can't have a social channel, then what are the other communication channels? And we're, waiting to hear from the town. But I'm right with you, and I appreciate your concerns because those are our concerns as well.
Yeah, I think you're going to find a lot of agreement with your sentiment, and nearly everybody up here is in the private sector, and when we take a decision in our private sector jobs, we just go do it and get it done. And whether it's a communication situation, a couple marketing professionals up here, and it can be frustrating to the wheels of a municipal government grind slowly and finally sometimes, and so we're eager and we're chomping at the bit, and I'm really glad you brought that up because
Partly what I don't want you to, and I understand it, the wheels of government move slowly. They're frustrating. It's like a giant company where there's too many old white guys in white shirts and red ties. So just make sure your frustration is well placed. Some of it belongs to you.
Sure.
Maybe.
Absolutely.
That's all. And again, not to be critical, I'm not sitting behind the desk or doing the work. So I'm thankful for everything that you are doing. But if I was on the budget committee or select board or some of the other committees that might have input to some of this, I'm gonna want more because I'm pulling in a salary or hoping to improve the town and volunteering. I'm accountable to the voters. Need to be aware of that. You're accountable to me. Unfortunately, you've put yourself in that position. But I'm with you. Like I said, I'm an easy sale. And I would suggest you move on because I've probably taken too much of your time already.
You haven't taken too much of the time. It's a valuable input. But one question that's in my mind is if you've had the opportunity to see the presentation that we gave to the select board, because after the warrant article was passed, there was a group, it was about 12 people in all, kind of a team of experts that got permission and were tasked by the select board to kind of study how would this work? How would a sustainability, office coordinator, how would you set it up? Truly a team of experts, and the names are all on there, and you can look up what everybody did, and talked with every town, I think, almost in northern New England that has a sustainability coordinator, looked at pros and cons of alignment and how people did things and what were the lessons learned and all that, and then at the end, talk to all the boards and committees and all the town, every department head in town, and incorporate all those comments into a presentation.
Right.
And if you have seen that,
And
I'm
I
really
have
interested if
seen
it
it.
helps.
And I have seen it, but in terms of the nitty gritty in town, getting things done, unfortunately, also the way the world works, that's old news. Great, but old news. And it needs to be kept top of mind.
So, I mean, we need to put that out again for people, because there's,
Or-
for every
or-
slide in that presentation,
or
there's a
freshen it
dozen
up.
that weren't in. Yeah,
Or freshen it up, or make
Okay.
it more known so that more, people can see it.
Okay.
So that, you'll be able to, maybe people will be more, not a lot of people are gonna sit through PowerPoints either.
No.
It's unfortunate.
it's, yeah,
And, the devil is in the details, and you guys are in the details now. So that's awesome.
and and like this, there's a lot of details in that brief that we didn't give,
Yes.
because it'd be mind numbing.
Yep.
People's eyes have been rolling in the back of their heads.
Right. And
So
even.
how to get
yeah.
that out to someone
Right.
like you without, like you said, killing somebody with the details, yeah,
It's tough.
Okay.
That's always gonna be a challenge, I think.
Okay.
Look at this room tonight. Look at the select board room. We're making important decisions, but it's not until something's on fire that everybody shows up.
Right.
I get that. I should have made dinner for my kids tonight instead.
me too.
Can you,
I'll do it
with the
later.
sauce and it's already made, can you put it on 5 minutes, Dad? No. So, and I may not be able to stay for the entire meeting because of that. So,
Right.
but I get it. I don't have all your solutions. I do want to say that I'm on your team. I do want you to remember that, as things go on, as you put this together, you have to refresh things. When you send out a mailer, if you get more than a 3% response,
That's great,
that's an oh my God moment.
right. So maybe
where
that's
you
something
are.
we need to dust off
Need to
and
do that.
freshen up, because, I mean, I've even heard comments that have come that were, we thought just beat and made obvious in that presentation, and then you get comments like, oh, well, if the sustainability needs a day person, why doesn't the energy committee's not asking one, or the river committee's not asking for one? And we're like, duh, the whole purpose was to coordinate across them, and that was missed. So you're right, there
I'm
needs to
gonna
be
leave- I'm
refreshed.
gonna leave you with this.
Yeah,
Oh my God,
yeah,
my assessment went up 25%. I'm gonna have to leave town.
yep,
Nope. Because they did not understand fairly simple concepts.
yep,
What you guys are
Yep.
trying to do, quite frankly, is a lot more complicated,
right,
and it's got a price tag on it, which is always a disadvantage, even if the money will come back.
right,
More so if you can't provide some almost guarantee. This isn't replacing the light bulbs on the light posts.
right,
We'll put this up, we'll give them to you for almost nothing, and they'll be paid for in 17 and a half months. Game
Right.
over. Signed, everybody votes for it, good to go.
Right.
This isn't what you guys are doing.
right. No,
This
we're
is
playing the
much-
long game.
You got touchy-feely, you got long game, you got financial things, you have other people making decisions that are fully accountable to the voters. Again, I've taken up a lot of your time. But I think you know what I'm saying. I hope.
Yep, appreciate
Thank
it
you.
very much.
Thank you
And I
very much
am
for
on
your
your
time.
team,
Thank you.
just not working for you. So I appreciate what you're trying to do.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay. Shall we move on to the budget? So I sent everyone, obviously, with the minutes of last month, and the agenda of the decision that was made at the Budget Review Committee on the 18th of October, and they declined our request of funding a sustainability coordinator for 2020. And we were provided with notes from Nancy Belanga, who was the chair of the subcommittee, Budget Review Committee, on her report that she furnished the budget meeting. I want to throw it open in terms of, I'm assuming everyone got to watch the video as well, whether we've got any first round comments on the decision that was made. And yeah, so.
Well, one of the thoughts that I've had is that we have gotten a grant, and we have gotten some, a person as part of that grant that starts in January, so we have something to start working with.
So, going back on that, I think watching that video, I think there is some misunderstanding on that grant because it's not for us.
It isn't?
It's for Julie LeBranche. as part of the Rockingham Planning Commission, having applied for that grant, and the 10,000 goes to Rockingham Planning Commission, doesn't come to us.
But don't we have her
So she,
assistance or whatever?
she is tasked with, in the proposal, she was tasked, there's 11 tasks that were put forward, and one of the tasks was that she would work with the subcommittee of this advisory committee. And one of the things was to start doing a prelim work on the gap analysis that we all seem to be tasked with doing. And on the meeting that was subsequently we had, when the New Hampshire Coastal Resilience Municipal Planning, who were providing the grant, reviewing the application, they requested an additional more information, and a meeting was with Russ, myself, Kathy Corson, the chair of the select board, and Julie LeBranch with Kristen Howard. And it was on the understanding that Exeter would be moving forward with a sustainability office for that grant to be eligible. And so...
Well, I'm just saying that since we did not get that, we have not gotten that yet, at least we have some help from her and from that grant.
Actually, my question though now is, are we even eligible for the grant? Because we've now put ourselves in a position where a key piece of the approval of this office has now said no.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So where does that leave us?
So sorry, I'm not going to talk unless you allow me to speak.
Go ahead.
So we do have the grant. We expect it in January. I think it's for the $10,000. So to work on a number of sustainability initiatives that are outlined in the grant. I think part of the issue with the scope is, at the time it was developed, and quite honestly, I have to say that in order for the town to get a grant of this magnitude in quite a short period of time is actually a really great achievement. I'm very happy to see that, and I'm glad that Rockingham Planning Commission helped us with that. And I think that it has great potential for the town. So it's certainly something we should take advantage of. It is through the resiliency program, so it's something a little different. When we had the conversations with them at the table about this, they were certainly very interested in sustainability and sort of where we were going with it. I've had conversations with a couple of you in the past about the complexity of government structure. We're not a charter town. To establish a separate office of sustainability is really, it can be a complex question. And it really is one that's left up to the select board and myself as the head administrator to establish something like that. So it's not very clear because there really isn't, I do not know of a sustainability office in the state of New Hampshire. And so I think it's a more complicated question about how you establish a separate office. And I'm sorry if I'm getting head shaking, because if I'm wrong, I want to be told I'm wrong.
I think it was more to do with establishing a sustainability coordinator.
Well, I think...
Because I think office was...
My understanding of the grant was that it was primarily to do with, one of the tasks of the list was to do a needs assessment and look at that. It's a very detailed scope, goes into a lot of different areas, and all of them relate back to sustainability. The point of me getting up was just to say that that scope was worked through 2 or 3 times, and it's actually, the grant is fitting into a program that New Hampshire DES has called Resiliency, that they wanted to talk to us 2 or 3 times over because it had to fit the scope of what they were charged with doing, I guess is what I'm saying. And part of my commentary to them was trying to get them on board with doing more direct sustainability grants, because we'd love to, apply for and get some because we think it has value.
Who does resiliency, and this is just a question, fall under within the current town structure? Because I don't know that, so probably a lot of people don't know that.
Resiliency in the context of infrastructure?
Well, in any context, since we
Okay,
don't have a
sure.
sustainability coordinator, who does
No,
that
we
fall
don't,
under?
but I would say resiliency in terms of infrastructure It depends on the department that it's fronted by. Emergency management certainly has a component. They have a hazard mitigation plan that they publish. That certainly has a resiliency factor associated with it. Our public works does a lot with resiliency. We just actually had a press conference at our wastewater facility on Monday. And part of the construction of that project was resiliency. They built in resiliency into that project.
I mean, I understand it crosses multiple departments. I just, like, if someone said, hey, I have a resiliency issue for Exeter, who do I call? I mean, is it one of those?
It depends what it is.
Okay, so which is kind of back to,
We have
whole reason for the
we have
sustainability
multiple,
coordinator, right?
we don't have departments of
Yeah.
resiliency, but we certainly have plans that speak to resiliency, and we have
Right.
different departments that deal with resiliency.
right,
But
Yeah, they
again, I
all
think
do.
it's like anything else.
Yeah.
I think it would depend on the question.
okay.
I guess one thing that we were talking about with this grant, is it possible that we would no longer get it since part of the grant seemed contingent on having a sustainability coordinator position as the town upholding their side of the grant?
And even before this committee was formed, we worked with Julie on working to help get the grant, and that was the understanding we had, which was part of the impetus for trying to get this all in place.
So I'm not under the impression that the grant requires us to hire a sustainability
Well, it
coordinator,
says-
and I don't think we could require that of the process. We could not apply for a grant and say the town will commit itself. We are not the ones that provide the funding. The town meeting does that. So we would not be able to say to them, okay, we are carte blanche going to hire a sustainability coordinator. And I don't think it says that in the grant.
Well, I think maybe we should invite Kristen Howard to come and
Just inform us?
just to inform the select board on exactly the situation, having had the budget review committee decline the
And I'm
offer.
also confused because, so you're saying we got the grant, but we're not totally clear on that outside of that, right? That's not all the
Yeah, I don't think we have the answers.
i's have been dotted and t's have been crossed.
Yeah.
I'm
No.
not sure that that's the case. So there's I just have confusion on that.
Has
like,
everyone read the grant? Have you read the scope?
There's still
If
updates
you
being
haven't had
done
a
to
chance to
it.
read the scope, I just encourage you to read the scope, because otherwise you're kind of tossing back and forth.
Right.
More speculative
Well, I
than
think-
actually details.
Well, I think we should invite Kristen Howard
Yeah, that
just
would be helpful, I
to
think.
clarify the situation on their understanding on how, whether the town is still eligible, and also to move forward.
So I have read the grant, and I just pulled this quote from it just to put it on this discussion is, project type. This proposal is a sustained municipal initiative that supports the citizens petition warrant article approved in 2019 to create a sustainability office and the select board's subsequent action to appoint a sustainability advisory committee. See details on the sustainability advisory committee's mission statement and charge, and then it links to our town website. This proposal will implement several key items in the committee charge. So actually, just to dovetail off that a little bit, I went to our town website to look at our mission and charge, and our new updated select board approved mission and charge is not on there, and things are linking to that. And
It's actually, it is on there. It's a downloadable
It's
on the
it's an
Sustainability
old one,
Advisory
though.
Committee page.
yeah, I
So
checked
when
it this morning, or on the way here, actually, and when you go to our, boards and committees, you click on Sustainability Advisory Committee, what comes up on that page on I don't know if I have a weird cache or something.
It is
in
the
mine.
same.
It's
the old
the old one and not the new one, so.
As I said, you have to scroll down a little bit and then click on, there is an updated charge that is attached as a PDF document. to
And
the
it still
very
says
same
draft,
page.
though.
But why
And it
would the old
says-
one still be?
Yeah,
It
why is the
is.
old one? Because
Yeah, that's
people,
confusing to
And there's
people.
no information that tells you that, like, I didn't see that, so how do we know the grants people and the BRC for that matter was seeing the right mission and charge?
I think the budget I can't speak for the Budget Recommendations Committee, but I believe what I understood was that they were handed all relevant information.
By
We
who?
should have the right information on our website.
but when you look on the page,
I'm
it should
sorry,
have.
We do have the information on our website. It is the updated charge at the select board. Again, this is
Right, no, I'm
part of
just
this
saying.
process has been very fluid and fast-moving, so, no,
still
we
the
did
old
not go into the
Right.
website and update the front window page of the Sustainability Advisory Committee charge, but we do have the board's updated charge as of September 23rd, that is downloadable. As you scroll down the page, it's an updated charge that you can click on. and
I
bring
understand,
up.
yeah, no, I understand
That's my
that.
understanding. Again,
I
if I'm
understand
wrong,
that. I'm
if
just
I'm wrong,
wondering why
feel
the
free to
old
call me
one,
out on it.
why the old one can't be taken off.
Oh, no,
That's what-
I
Yeah.
think you're correct. I think it's just a matter of, in fact, we wanted to get the new one up there fairly quickly, and we did do that, but we have not gone in and edited the actual committee page to sort of replace one with the other.
So I think it's misleading, as any a layperson would go onto that, they would read the old charge. They wouldn't really go down and scroll down and assume there's a new charge.
Yeah, it's the old rule of what's called below the fold, right? And just like it was in newspapers, same thing in web design. And so most people just stop when they see, oh, the committee charge is right here. It's the first thing you see on the page. And so it is unfortunately, and you know, we don't know what decisions or thoughts or opinions of both taxpayers and committees are being made on what they're reading. So I think, you know, as just a core basic communication device, it's in everyone's best interest to make sure we get this stuff updated. I know it's not easy, and I know web management's a challenge. It's hard, but I think especially front-facing stuff, top-line stuff above the fold should be as up to date as possible.
If I could take a second, because I was thinking how does this, what's the ripple effect of not reading the right updated charge and mission? And I just want to call out two key pieces of the charge that changed and were really critical into this committee moving forward. And I think why I am on this committee and how, in part, why I was approved by the select board, to be honest, because of these first two drivers. And the top two items on the charge are advise and assist the select board on the establishment of a formal sustainability office pursuant to Exeter Town Warrant 2019, Article 31. The second one is advise and support the sustainability office. Those are the top two items on our charge. Our mission statement should say in the updated charge, which was approved, the date, 9/23/19, so that's when the select board approved it, to guide the development of sustainability policies and practices for the town of Exeter that simultaneously promote a healthy environment, strong community connections, and economic vitality, including the establishment of the Town of Exeter Sustainability Office. So to me, those are pretty profound statements and a huge shift in language to what was originally proposed for the mission and charge. And I am just kind of left feeling a little bit just concerned that our grant links to other old language within that grant document that I have seen. I clicked on it, that's what I got. I didn't read under the fold. For whatever reason, it didn't occur to me that there'd be yet another version of the language somewhere on that page. And then second, that the Budget Review Committee received information about the work we have done and whatnot, and it's not clear to me that they were reading the updated charge and mission or the old one. So I'm just kind of concerned about both of those things, because that's why I'm on this committee. That's why the select board sat with me and said, all the work that you had done with Sustainability Office advocates up to this point, it makes sense that you continue this work in this capacity on this committee. I mean, I'm not a scientist. I don't have a lot of expertise in the science of sustainability. I mostly am here to represent citizens who care about moving this initiative forward. So I just feel like I need to say that.
Well, you just bring up a point, though, if there's inaccurate information. That was one of the concerns with the deliberations and the comments from the BRC, is that it seemed like things were misstated or misinformed or uninformed in several cases, or there was like, but that was covered. How did that not get to them? And maybe this is part of the problem.
Yeah, the discussion, I feel like even if we're talking about the BRC meeting, that driver of this committee was buried in the conversation, if it appeared at all. There was no discussion around that. And really that is, for me, again, and I feel like, I can't speak for you all, but I feel like we voted on and approved those items bubbling up to the top reason why we're doing this, because it informs the work that we can get done as a committee, as an all-volunteer committee that has an overwhelming amount of responsibility under the umbrella of sustainability that can work together with an office that's put in place or a coordinator that's put in place. So,
I'd also like to add to that I think having watched the BRC meeting, for me, I think it just came across for again, somebody like Paul watching that would be totally lost in terms of all the work that we have done. and the reasons why it's so important to have a coordinator position and move it forward. I felt that it came across that, oh, they've got this $10,000 grant, so yeah, they don't need a paid position because they can use that grant to do something with it, and then we can wait a couple of years down the line to appoint somebody when they come back to us with something they've done. So some of the language also I found quite disrespectful in terms of some people quoting they should roll their sleeves up and get on with doing sustainable work as a committee, which I thought was disrespectful, really.
Well, it's actually a little bit ignorant too,
Yeah.
because it's not like sustainability is a pet project. Oh, go do the sustainability project, because if it's not being incorporated across the town of a way of doing business overall, since it does cross every board and committee and every department, and if you don't understand that, then you don't know what you're talking about.
And
I mean,
if-
you just, yeah.
The town is not ready for a sustainability coordinator position, and the main charge of this committee is to advise that person. Is there a point in this committee existing?
It's a good question,
That's the main charge. Like, I don't know if, I personally, as one of I think the chair of the BRC, suggested that we should be doing the full-time job for a few years and then they'll hire someone. And I'm like,
No.
I came tonight ready. I'm ready to quit. I'm sorry, I can't do another full-time
That's where the
job.
ignorance comes in, and because you have been employed as in a sustainability
Yeah.
office and you understand it, that's what it seems to me is there's so much, and Paul, to your point, there is just honest ignorance out there, and maybe that's the charge, is how to educate people and how to get it out there so people are making more informed and better decisions. Because it's not people's fault, they don't know.
Well,
in some
it comes down to communication, and respectfully, we've asked, I think, 2 meetings in a row about social media access and things like that, and we've got office holders across the land that are up all night using Twitter, and we can't get a Facebook account to communicate just basic stuff about what the community's charge is and what the select board has passed as, I mean, the mission and charge were approved by the select board, and we're trying to fulfill that, and we can't even communicate that to our good citizens. We can't even get the proper language on the website to communicate that to our good citizens unless you mine down to the bottom, so.
But to that point, and I hear your frustration, but this goes back to what I said originally. When I saw that, excuse me, when I saw that meeting on October 1st, and you were asking advice 17 days before that big decision, knowing that
But the thing
it
is,
can
we
be
didn't
difficult
know.
to get people on board. If I was as passionate as you folks seem to be, and I think it would be allowed, I think I would try to put together like a 3-page packet, and
We did.
We actually did
So
put
they
together a
had all
packet
this?
for him, and we actually started asking about the process as soon as this committee was formed,
so
and
why were you still?
we didn't get informed. We didn't get the right
It sounded
information
like
in
to
time.
me, from what I saw, again, as an
They
outsider.
were, but in August, we were told to wait till September.
Yeah,
and
I
then
don't think we were
yeah.
allowed to start working on the process
Yeah.
until
Well,
September. So
you
this
work
is like,
behind the scenes, though. So that.
Well,
when-
we were
did.
trying.
When the,
We met.
I get
We
it,
did.
and again, I'm not here
Yeah.
to criticize at all.
No, your points are well taken. There's just
But when I
frustration
hear on
on both
October
sides.
1st, like, what else, what should we be doing to try to, like,
So I
that's
actually,
like September work.
yeah.
It sounded like to me, from what I heard, and again, when I don't have access to minutes
I
or
think
other
we
things
did-
like that, I'm concerned about those people are accountable. It just like everybody else, and boy, the budget committee, I don't think I couldn't find time for it this year. I really wanted to do it this year, but I couldn't justify it. I hope to sometime in the future, but those people get a lot of pushback. The select board gets pushback. The townspeople voted for hope, is what I think, because that Article 31 looked hopeful, it looked positive. Why wouldn't we vote for this? But the concrete from the outside, again, seems short. Not that you haven't done the work, that's not what I'm saying. But if you're not making the sale, You know, even the salesman has to go out and talk to somebody else to say, what am I doing wrong? I know I got a great product. What can I do to sell this? But you got to do it before it's too late.
Can I speak to that one piece
Sure.
of that, actually, Paul? So one other thing I wanted to bring up about the review committee is there was a lot of discussion about the job description, and things seem to really go into like the spiral over the job description. And it's my understanding that, so, you know, I was there, so we brought the job description to the select board on, I don't know what date that was.
September 23rd.
Right, so we, you know, got to that point because of discussions that were happening with Mr. Sharples, Mr. Dean, and other players. Nico had instructed us that we had kind of had the pieces, you know, that we needed to have together. We went to the select board, and
Well, before we went to the select board, we passed it here amongst ourselves, and we routed it through the town.
yeah.
With
So
Dave, and got all the town managers' comments and incorporated those, and so we had that all together when we went to the
A
select.
lot of rolling up the sleeves and doing work in that capacity. Select board was a great discussion. They had some grammatical changes. They agreed with the essence of it. You know, there was just little tweaks here and there. And we left that meeting with the advice from the chair of the select board to leave the little fine tuning stuff for later. Let's get it in front of the budget review committee in its current state and let the process play out. That's the advice we got. So at that point, grammatical, you know, fixes were made by office staff, town staff, and a request was made by this committee to receive that update, and there was no response. So from that point on, we entered into the.
So when you say no response,
no reply.
nobody picked up the phone?
No.
Said this is an emergency?
At that
Kinda?
point, we didn't think it was an emergency. At that point, it was merely, did the grammatical mistakes get added or did they not? Very small stuff, but whether we got it or not, a contact was made, we didn't have anything. Therefore, there was no approved draft, whatever, job description in the hands of this committee, in the hands of the public. It simply went directly to the BRC. So it was just a little bit confusing to me as someone watching it. I didn't actually attend, but to go back and watch and see this round and round discussion about how it's a draft, it's in the queue, there's lots still missing, there's pieces in play. When we felt like we left that select board, we felt fantastic because we came to a consensus
done.
it would be under planning. And we felt really positive about it and that we could celebrate that. And it almost seemed to me
It's
like
good
that
to know
committee.
these are the missing
Right.
pieces that I would be able to get from
Right.
So
things
thank
like
you for
minutes.
asking.
I don't
Yeah.
see it in the video. It's
Yeah.
great. You're getting an opportunity to talk about it tonight. I don't know how big this audience is, probably not that big.
Right.
But it's out there.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, for other enthusiastic people in town that have great ideas like you guys have, part of the issue that you folks have and why you've had to work hard to put this together quickly is because when that warrant article went out, it went out as a piece of hope, a wonderful piece of hope. But ideally, those things are more, how should I say this? More specifically formulated as a request with this is what we're gonna do and this is the expected outcome. And you sell the warrant article. You guys sold the warrant article because why wouldn't you, right? Sustainability Committee, good for the town, you know.
Good for
it-
business.
It passed.
Good for people.
Why wouldn't it? But then you put yourselves in a position where, you know, you put out a warrant article, hopefully you start working on that the prior October, November, December, warrant article, boom. You hit the ground running in April. You guys didn't give yourselves the luxury of that. So then you were pressed. And I think that can be frustrating because, you know, without volunteers, this town goes down the toilet.
Yeah.
You guys know that better than anybody right now. Without the employees, it goes down the toilet. But since I became a little bit more involved in, you know, town politics and trying to pay attention to what's going on now that my kids are a little older, you put yourselves in a tougher position by having to jam all this in at once. And it's coming out, I think, there's a lot of frustration. And when you're under the gun like that, it's good to know. I'm glad that you have put that out there, but
Yeah, so
as
no one else
somebody
knows
who's
the job
looking for this
description was done.
information,
Yeah.
there's no way for me as a citizen to know this. And the BRC people, I promise you, are buried.
So I think it's important, since we're bringing this up and we get into smoothing out some of this stuff, whether anyone's watching this at home or not, that this committee didn't become a committee until the end of July. We couldn't have our first meeting, though we were doing everything we could to get it moving. And I think it's amazing what's been accomplished in, let's see, when was our first meeting? Like July 28th or something? Because you were still in
It was
Africa
August,
at that point,
August.
right?
Yeah.
A thorough job description was fleshed out to the point where town staff, our chair representative, and this committee all agreed that it had the chops to go in front of that
It was done.
review
It was
committee.
done.
It was done, unless there's someone above the town manager and the select board that we missed.
Right. Other than a few grammatical tweaks that, like I said, Madam Chair of our select board said, let's, fine tune that.
And that was hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that,
So,
so that was one of the items. The other thing that we did was we worked on revising the charge and the mission, which took several rounds with the select board, because of course, we're all folding in input at that point. So simultaneously, we're working on that. Meanwhile, we got a grant, and we worked with Julie LaBranch from the Rockingham County Planning Commission to get a $10,000 grant for this sustainability initiative in this town that this committee will support. And again, this is since we formed as a committee, which was way late in the summer, and here we are, we're just starting November. And we went in front of we got things for the BRC committee, people met behind the scenes. So I just personally, I wish that I could have done more along this process. I participated as I could at the time, but the members of this committee who've stepped up, particularly our chair, and I know Robin had met, countless hours behind the scenes with town staff and others, and I want to take this moment to thank you for that, because as frustrating as where we are now, we know we've been rolling up our sleeves and putting in the time, not to mention the year ahead of this where, tons of citizens have worked tirelessly to get the research and the data together. And, you're raising your hand, Nico, and it's reminding me that, it's been great because you've been able to tell us what we've had in place so far as being enough for the budget review committee, and we felt confident going in that we did have enough. And so, here we are.
I think one of the big lessons learned for us was that before the committee was formed, everybody who worked from the Warren article and doing the literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of research that you saw a short presentation at the select board meeting, but there's a ton of stuff. Twice that brief was condensed to throw stuff in backup. It was so much work, but once the committee's formed, there's so many rules that you're under as a town committee on, when you are allowed to talk, because the public has to be able to be involved, so you can't have the quorums when you're not in this format, and there are all these rules, and there's a reason for the rules, I understand that, but it definitely slows down the rate at which we could progress, because before that, you could just, meet and converse over email and just get things done, and then it slowed down by actually being a committee, just because of those rules. And even just today, I know that's something that out in town, people are frustrated with, is why is everything so slow? And just today, someone had invited me to do something tonight, and I got a sustainability meeting, and it's like, when you're gonna get out of that stuff, they never get, nothing ever gets done, everyone just talks and just studies. And so I think there is a lot of feeling in the town with, things take forever, and I don't know, it takes leadership to get out of that, because it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, and I think it also from watching the BRC video, it just seems like that, because they did it the committee worked on, for example, the example that was given was the economic development position. There was a committee that worked for 3 years before they
It's not even a germane example.
they established a position, and it just seems like, this is the way we've done it, so let's just do it the same way with regards to this position for the sustainability coordinator. And in my mind, and I'm hoping that the rest of the committee members will agree, that we really don't have that much time. You know, with what is going on generally, you just have to walk out in terms of the unusual temperature variations you have every day, you know, the storms, the rain, you know, whether it feels it's like 60 degrees today, you know. So, I mean, climate is affecting every single one of us, and, you know, we need towns up and down the country are appointing sustainability coordinators, sustainability directors to oversee, be the outreach, you know, connect with residents on what they could, as individuals could do, you know, and talk about sustainability and how climate would affect them. So, I mean, that's my...
Yeah, and as a committee, I think one of the best things we can do is education, because anybody out there who thinks you can talk about it for 3 years before acting doesn't know what they're talking about.
You can't.
So when I came here as town manager, the common refrain was, well, I'll just say this, we've had a budget committee in some form or another since 1857. So that budget committee's institutionalized in this town since before the Civil War, which is kind of a running joke we have, but it's actually a reality. There's been plenty of people that have come to me over the years and looked at me and told me this town moves at a glacial pace. There are also people that have come to me and said, I love the fact that this town moves at a glacial pace.
There won't be any glaciers left.
Happens quickly. So that is an ongoing debate and discussion that is had in this town, and it's been going on for a very, very long time.
That's fair.
I just wanted to iterate and make sure I said tonight that the final draft of that job description was done after the select board reviewed it on the 23rd. It was done on October 2nd. It was given over to the General Government Budget Subcommittee that had a chance to review the request. I know that, I'm not going to speak for them. I know that they do what they do. There were, I believe, 3 people involved with that review of the sustainability request, and they did that in detail. And Chet and I can't remember if they met with you or not. But I will say that our process, again, is job description and all relevant information goes to that subcommittee. They can ask any questions they want. They take all the information. They meet. They discuss it. They make then a full committee recommendation, which you have seen the full committee discussion on that, and not necessarily the budget subcommittee meeting before that. But I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that's part of the process. And yeah, I mean, you can mark the date, September 23rd, back to the select board. And I know this group has put a lot of effort and energy in the first couple of months of your existence into this job description and refining the charge that the select board originally gave you. But September 23rd, October 2nd, and then we have our all-day meeting on October 18th with the Budget Recommendations Committee. In between then, the subcommittees are meeting and reviewing the budget. So it's only to say in our process, there are a lot of detailed line item conversations that go on as part of it. So I just wanted to highlight that. I'm not judging that as good or bad. I'm just saying that is the process that we have.
I'll just say that we were ready to go in June 5th or 3rd. We had our SOA presentation to the select board. So, you know, we can only do what we can do within what gets approved by select board and whatnot to become a committee. And I think, like I said before, we've done the best we can given the time frame.
With the constraint.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I guess, you know, let's get right to the brass tacks. I mean, we can't put the water back over the dam, right? So the committee said they can't recommend this. So my question simply is there any way to reverse that decision? And if the answer is no, then we have to move on to, you know, we have to strategize on what plan B is if we're going to try to fulfill the charge of the committee. As simple as that. And how do we move forward in a different fashion? Simple as that.
Well, the select board has a decision point, and Nico can talk to that in December. So the BRC is just a recommendation, right?
Mike, can I speak?
Yeah.
First of all, I just kind of want to bring this, because we've talked about 4 or 5 different things on the agenda, and we're kind of doing it in a circle, but I just wanted to make a few points and kind of bring it back, Chris, to your question. But first and foremost, Jen, I couldn't agree with you more. I think what this committee has accomplished in the 3 months that you've been together, particularly since this is the first time all 7 of you have been together, I think is remarkable. You've put together a mission statement. You've put together goals and objectives. You put together a job description. and you secured the town of Exeter a $10,000 grant. I think that's remarkable for 3 months. When the select board decided to establish this committee, we took in the applications and we interviewed 4 or 5 people over the course of 2 weeks. And we expedited the process by nominating and voting on individuals, the 7 of you, the night that we interviewed. And so even though the process may have seemed slow to you, the select board expedited the process so that we could get this committee established. And your first meeting was at the end of July because we had to find time where this room was available and that everybody's schedule permitted. Regarding, Chris, your question, first of all, I cannot and will not speak for the BRC. I'm no longer on the BRC. But when we spoke during our meetings here, I told you what my experience was 3 years in the BRC, the last 2 of which I chaired. And I made suggestions of what you should submit, and I made suggestions as to what documentation and what you should provide the subcommittee when you do meet. I will say this is an unusual situation because typically the BRC doesn't meet with committees. They meet with department heads and they go over department budgets. So this was a little unorthodox. This was all new. Okay. I was here for the all-day BRC meeting. You've all seen the video, so I don't need to go through that again. But what you haven't seen is the other 7 or 8 hours of that day in subsequent meetings, and I've been at every BRC meeting. The BRC is still reviewing the budget as we speak, okay? So far, they've reviewed 3 other requests for positions, 1 in the Department of Public Works and 2 in the Fire Department. The Fire Department made the case that they needed 2 more firefighters to enhance public safety for the town of Exeter. The DPW made a request for an additional laborer, heavy equipment operator, because they haven't added staff in 20 years. The Budget Recommendations Committee deliberated, much like they did with the Sustainability Coordinator, and they declined the 2 firefighters, and they declined the DPW employee. I don't know, I can't tell you, Chetna, what your subcommittee meeting was, because I wasn't there, but presumably you went through everything that we've talked about. I did not have the documents that they were looking at, but it's my understanding that they had the updated job description as well as the mission statement and the charge. I don't think the BRC made their decision because of a job description that may or may not have been a draft or had grammatical errors or punctuation. The BRC is charged at looking at the overall budget for the town. So in listening to them deliberate, you know, we all heard what they said. I can appreciate how you feel hearing their words. I don't think they meant any disrespect when they talked about rolling up sleeves and so forth. We're all volunteers, and even though we're on different boards or committees, we're volunteers and we're working together. We're representing the town of Exeter. So I find it very hard to believe, knowing the individuals on the BRC, that they meant any disrespect. But I do understand how you could have taken it that way. The budget review process is still ongoing. There's 3 more meetings. There's the water and sewer on Thursday, and then there's 2 CIPs. Upon completion of the BRC's review of the overall budget, they will make a recommendation to the select board sometime in early December, typically it is. At that point, the select board will go over the recommendations. The select board has the purview to take out other budget item lines. They could deliberate and try to vote budget lines back in, okay? And I say that not to give any help. I can't speak for my 4 colleagues. I don't even know, you know, how I'm gonna look at the overall budget because we're still working on it. The preliminary budget came in at 4.5%. Typically, it's under 3, okay? Does that mean, you know, that things have to get cut? Not necessarily, but the Budget Recommendations Committee gets the first crack at the overall budget. I did not take their zeroing out the line for the position as them not agreeing that we need a position. I think they were looking at the overall budget, they were looking at the overall personnel requests, and the fact that the committee is new, and it's no fault of the committee members, it's no fault of the select board. This is a new committee that was established as a result of a citizen's petition. And you have done a lot of work. And I think what I took from the BRC, and again, I want to be clear that I'm not speaking for them, this is my interpretation, was that they wanted to wait at least another year to let the committee do some work along with, town staff to determine what's already being done. There's a lot more that needs to get done. And it is frustrating, but when you look at the town of Exeter, we've done so much already in this regard. And I think that the first step, establishing this committee, and then moving forward into the next year, bringing it back to the BRC, if it doesn't pass this year, is the next step. But Chris, if the select board doesn't put the line item back in, the next step is deliberative session. And that's when the citizens will show up, and, that's an opportunity for further deliberation. So it's not over. The BRC is the first step. But I just want to, and I don't want to influence your thinking. I'm not even going to try to do that. I just want you to understand what the BRC is doing. They're looking at the whole overall budget. And I really needed to bring up the perspective that 3 other crucial personnel requests were also declined.
No, I really appreciate you putting that perspective and the big picture, because the big picture is super important as well, and I really appreciate all that input. That's super helpful.
So if I could have one more minute, Madam Chair. Mm-hmm. Chris asked another question about 15 minutes ago. Social media. The town manager and I, since our last October 1st meeting, I told you I would look into that. I have. The town does have a social media policy that was established in 2013 by the select board at that time. I think, Mr. Dean, we agree that a lot's happened in 6 years in social media, and that the policy is in entire need of revision. So I believe that in a very future agenda for the select board, we're going to be reviewing that. But I think, regardless of whether we use the 2013 policy or if the select board takes it up to revise it, I think that the one thing that was in there is that any social media page has to be administered by a town employee rather than a committee member for several reasons. One being the 91A and making sure that there's no violation of the right to know. The other is to make sure that, if something is posted by a citizen, that it's not, I think, deleted and violating their First Amendment rights. And having a town employee overseeing that kind of takes the pressure off of a volunteer that sits on a committee. And I don't know, Russ, if you wanted to speak more to that or...
So we have, like Nico was saying, we actually have very few committees that are engaged in social media, and part of that was by design for all the reasons he referred to, and I will say that, when we first got into the social media action a few years ago, in more earnest, it was easy for us because we focused on departments, and departments work day to day. They can kind of keep an eye on things. Obviously as a community, we've had our social media issues from time to time. We know that. So, but when it comes to committees, it's a different animal because the committee is subject to the right to know law, and the concern had always been if we had a 5-member committee and 3 posted on a social media site, that it would constitute a meeting, and therefore you would be in violation of right to know. And we sort of batted this back and forth and said, wow, the town could potentially be in a big problem if that occurred, because we have, as you know, we've been talking about it tonight, 30, 40 committees. They're everywhere. And so if they all were on social media and there was no way to administer that, and you'd have all these comments coming in that regard, and then it would be probably very innocently done, but 1, 2, 3 of you respond, then we get the message, oh, wait a minute, there's a violation here, what are you doing about it? And then we take down somebody's comments, and all of a sudden, as a government entity, we're right in this First Amendment headache. And folks, I gotta tell you, it's real. I mean, sure. We laugh about it, but this is real life, this is what happens. So committees were kind of put on the side. It is true, the Conservation Commission did come to us and said, can we do this? And we said at the time, well, Kristen Murphy, if she coordinates it and kind of watches it and makes sure that everything works right, and oh, by the way, with all of these caveats, understand it, they were the one commission that really got a social media page.
Exeter River Committee also has one.
Well, if they have one, I'm not even aware of that they have one. So, I mean, that maybe tells you something right there. I don't
Sorry,
know.
Exeter River Committee.
I
love you.
I don't know if it's the Town River Advisory Committee or it's the ESRLAC, which is a different, Exeter Squamscott River Local Advisory Committee is actually a state committee that we have 2 local representatives on, so that's a
It's the town
different.
committee.
It's a town committee, yeah.
Oh, all right,
I mean,
well-
they post about their
Well,
meetings and whatnot.
You mean, so we heard,
So
you
the
know,
point is heard.
I mean,
and the point
allegedly.
is taken. So to Nico's point, we really have to make sure that if a committee's going to have a social media presence, that we have to have a staff person that is connected some way to that page, so that if anything happens, we can just administer it that way from our end and not have the potential of things happening. And the other thing we're going to need to do, as more of this is brought forward, is first of all, we have to have a conversation with the select board, because I really believe it would be irresponsible of me if I didn't recommend to them that they need to think about this globally. In other words, do they want 30, 40 committees to have Facebook pages? Because then all of a sudden, we're into a real problem, potentially, and they really need to deliberate over that very carefully. So,
I don't see why you wouldn't want to have one Facebook page for the town.
Well, we do, and we have our IT person that administers that, so we do
But like
have
the
a Town
police
of Exeter
department
page.
has their own thing.
Police
and-
department
yeah,
does have a
right,
page,
and
the
it's
fire department does have a
DPW.
page,
Yeah.
yeah. But again, those are departments of the town where they're being administered from the inside, and they're not subject to the same right-to-know issues that a town committee would be subject to.
So,
it's
I
a-
mean,
it's
if
a
you
very-
have, if
it's
you
a
have
di-
somebody who's doing that, why couldn't committees submit updates, say, that they thought would be of interest to the
Right. and I-
townspeople to
and-
know? That
and-
could be just published by the person who is already supervising your town page.
Correct, and I think that's what Kristen does with the Conservation Commission page. I think they submit things to her that they would like to see up, and then she puts them up on the page. So if we can figure out a way to do that, there's a possibility we
Can I
can get there.
just ask
Very
a
hard
quick
to do.
question? I mean, yeah, there's obviously issues with social media, and I totally understand, the town's perspective on that, and I respect that. But maybe going forward, there's an opportunity here to create, I mean, I'm in communications and very aware of all the things that happen digitally with communications, but maybe there's an opportunity here to create a communication plan. And okay, if it's not social media, if it's it would be ridiculous to have 30 committee Facebook pages, right? But to have a central place, even if we create like the town website, and there's, in business, a wiki or something where committees can submit information that they want placed, and I don't know your staffing or who manages the website or anything like that, but thinking of alternatives as we move forward to how can we educate and communicate with the public, what means if the website, for instance, isn't working, what are other options that we can look at if it's not social media?
Right, and I realize it's become a complicated world, right? And so government institutions don't always keep up with technology and what's
Right.
happening, but the piece that keeps coming back to me is as this area evolves further and further, you're getting, defamation cases, you're getting people demanding that you take something down as
yeah.
being inaccurate. And when you're on our end as a government agency, as a private entity, you have a lot more flexibility. You can
Right.
control the message, you can control whatever you want.
Right.
We have to look at every single thing as like, well, wait a minute. I think our first reaction is we can't do anything about it. And then it gets into our policy, which I'm happy, I won't present it to you, but I'll leave it for you to take with you. We do try to put some parameters around, if something is hateful or that sort of thing, we will reserve the right to take it down. But again, it's always a challenge. So we've been walking that line for a while, and it's like I said, we want to communicate well out to our public, out to the public about services and things like that. But boards, committees, and commissions just fall under a different category. And for that reason, you know, there's pros and cons. As a citizen volunteer committee, you can go out and advocate for things in ways that town staff cannot do, as far as warrant articles and things like that. But as far as right to know, I mean, that's a very, that hasn't changed. I mean, every year the legislature deals with 30 amendments to the right to know law, and they're almost always
Right.
geared toward, you know, ripping open the can and, you know,
Well,
getting in.
could this
file
be
cabinets.
proposed to the, that we wonder whether we could publish, if you say the other committee is already doing it, Conservation Committee is already doing it, that we would be allowed to publicize certain things that we know are happening here in town?
Yeah.
Which we want to boost?
Yeah, and
Give
we've
some
always
good
been
publicity
very
to it.
good
Could
about.
we submit it to us, and could you tell us how to do that? If
Sure.
they would approve,
Sure.
can you just tell us how to do that?
Yeah, we're happy to do that. We have a section on our website that's dedicated to community events, so, you know, there's an avenue to get there. And then, of course, obviously, we have 22 and 98, and we have the town Facebook page, so if you're having an event and you want to boost that or something along those lines, that's all.
And not only that, I would like to publicize what the town is already doing in the way of green eco building and planning, which they are doing a lot of, and I just would like to get that out there.
Are we
That was
allowed
one
to-
of
I
our-
think that's one of the main things that we as a committee can do, and
It's-
I don't know why volunteers can't do that.
I just want to mention it's number 7 on our charge, just because I have it here. Establish communication plan to coordinate and engage with community partners and stakeholders in all sustainability needs and initiatives. So I don't know how many other committees actually have that in their charge, but one of our big goals is outreach and community.
Well, and
building.
education.
So it's a huge
That's sort of
deal.
why I
And maybe
joined the
we're the
committee.
test committee for fleshing some of this stuff out, and that we can kind of help lay the groundwork for some of these other committees.
Again, you're
too.
not alone. The Energy Committee's in the same boat. And
The
again,
Energy
that's-
Committee, the
that is
River
one- That is
Committee.
one that we're in the process of sort of pulling in
Mm-hmm.
and reshaping to meet what we feel are, what we need to do to have something functioning. Because the other piece of this, when we go and update the policy, is we have to put provisions in it about what's official and what's not. Because with social media, anyone can go out, create a page and claim it's, you know, an official town affiliated committee. And we are now actually having to put more, again, police department, fire department, easy. But as you get into other areas, it gets a little bit more complicated. So, you know, who's a not-for-profit
But we're just
versus-
asking if we could
Right.
submit to your person who puts the town website
Right.
up.
I
And it's
understand.
up to them if they want to alter it or reject it or whatever.
Yeah, I think there's a
Can we just do
mechanism.
that?
I think there's a mechanism that we are going to get to, that we need to find a staff person, and then if you are having events or things right now, you can come through the town, whether it's through my office, and say, we're having this event, and we'd like Bob to post it on the town Facebook page, and, you know, feel free to email me and let me know what it is, and we'll make sure that it gets up and out.
So we go directly through you to Exeter TV or whatever, the communications group?
I think for
via you.
starters, sure,
Okay,
that
yeah.
would be a great way
Okay.
to go.
Yep.
Okay.
So it definitely makes sense that someone from the town would have to, you know, oversee that to me. For, I mean, 3 decades in government, then would have never, none of the organization I've been with would do other than that. I'm just wondering, though, it's one of the things with the whole concept of the Sustainability Office, Sustainability Committee was to be that umbrella coordinating a big picture across river and energy and conservation and all of those different committees. And even at some point, like you said, you never want to have 30 Facebook pages. Is there a way to group these together? Because they all do sort of fall under the sustainability umbrella. Still have a town person until the sustainability coordinator is in place, but some town person who's oversees that. But then maybe all the committees have a place to go, and people like Paul don't have to check 16 web pages to find out what's going on, you know.
Well, Paul's always going to have to check 16 because he's a fairly comprehensive guy. But as a committee, all of you can take one department, go to them and say, can we have something for the sustainability page, and then feed it to the point person, if it's our office, and we can feature it on a single page. I mean, we can do that. That's easy enough to do.
Good.
So, yeah.
Mission accomplished.
I just have a question. Are we allowed to, be in a town committee? are we allowed to go the old-fashioned route and write press releases and submit them to the media?
I think that would have to be handled in a similar way,
I just
actually.
think, I think we've had committees in the past put out press releases. I think you'd want to have a process within your committee to establish how you would do
Right.
that and sort of how it would be done.
And then who would
and then
we submit it to the town to get approval?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. We typically don't, I mean, over the years, we've sort of evolved our process that the departments will write a press release and we don't have any kind of central approval.
Right,
But
nobody from a
it's like
committee.
always a work in progress, so. I can't imagine a situation where you put a press release out that would cause like a liability
Right,
type
right,
situation, which
right.
is usually where I sort of stop, but.
Right,
As long as you have an internal process, I think that's okay. I don't know if you
Okay.
could comment on it, but that's what I would see.
okay.
Can I just
And the
quickly add,
option.
with regards to Paul having said that when he went to the sustainability page on the town website, that the minutes, not all the minutes were there from all our meetings that we've had. How quickly do they get posted up onto the website?
I know the minutes from the last meeting were there. I don't,
All of them?
they are there. No.
No, just
But we have to think about the lag time too, that we just approved tonight, the meeting, minutes from the last meeting a month ago.
Okay.
So that if you were a voter and you wanted to see what happened in October, you'd have to wait till November to see what happened in October. So that's sort of part of the challenge is our approval process as well. That's
Is there a way we
the
can speed
apparent
that
lag.
up?
If the minutes are draft and they're emailed to us, we can put them up on the website the same day.
So where are the other meeting minutes then? If only 2 meetings are up there? I have them all. That's like, should I send them again? Because,
Did you send them, who did you send them to?
yep, I've been sending, the woman, she's emailed me back.
Pam?
Yeah. Yeah, I've
she's
sent them.
responsible for
Right.
putting them
Okay,
up.
because I've sent all of them. So I don't
Resend,
know.
we'll get them up as soon as we get them.
Okay,
Maybe
I
copy me
had-
on it.
I've
Because
got
we were having
new-
meetings every
Make sure
2
that that
weeks for a
happens.
while, so.
What?
We were having meetings like
I
every
know,
2
I
weeks
was
for a while.
like,
There's a
I've
lot of
got-
notes you
I've got
took
a lot of
there.
notes.
You need some props for that.
But also that, just for that point of clarity too, for the committee, that obviously draft stuff can go up and then it can, once it's approved, we would just replace the draft stuff with the approved stuff. So that would
I had
hasten.
the wrong date and we had to change the draft.
Okay.
Yeah.
I always say but legally, really, the only legal requirement for a committee is that you have draft minutes. It's
Okay.
one of the, sort of an odd thing in the law. We encourage people, obviously, committees to approve their minutes. It's good practice, but for a legal requirement, only draft are necessary.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah, go on,
We need
Sally.
a final draft.
Sally has a question.
So I have a question, just clarifying where we are with the website. And it goes back to Paul's concern and what's there. And so what I understand, I was trying to check it on my phone, but I couldn't, couldn't do it on my phone. So what's there is the mission.
The old mission
But then there's a PDF. So why isn't the revised mission?
at the
Yeah,
top.
the top.
that's baffling.
I'm confused about that, and I think it needs to be taken care of immediately.
Yes.
So all I can really say to that is that we were trying to get, we do a lot of things in the town day to day, and it did get on the website, but I've heard your concern tonight, I understand, and we'll work to edit that page and get the revised charge replacing that old charge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I meant to say before, Nico, thank you for coming back with social media stuff. Appreciate that.
I had a lot to say tonight, and I've got to go. I just want to make sure that you really do know that I appreciate each and every one of you and the work that you have done. And I wish you the best of luck with your mission. I think it's important. I didn't want to see it get lost because somebody that was interested had difficulty finding information. So even though it may have sounded critical at times, my mission here tonight was actually to try to be helpful, because like I said, I'm an easy sale. I think all you guys have done some excellent work. I think your heart's in the right place, and I look forward to seeing more work get done and to see where this finally lands.
May I ask?
I think you're doing good work.
Please spread the news of us to fellow
everybody here.
residents.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry,
I'm sorry.
please.
Lucy.
So going back to the social media
Mm-hmm.
and the press thing, so I had a possible idea. I don't know if it's feasible, but and especially as a student at Phillips Exeter, I think no one really knows, especially like students, no one really knows about this committee or like even the town council, let alone this committee. So I feel like on campus, I think I'm involved with a lot of environmental activities. I'm on the e-board and I'm the editor-in-chief of the school's sustainability magazine. That we're releasing a new issue soon. But we're planning for that, and I was wondering if we could somehow like include some kind of like summary of like what the meetings are about, or like just like a description or something. Like
Yeah.
have like just like a page or like a little column, if that's like feasible at all, if we have to like submit it for approval.
Yes, I totally for that.
So would that have to go through you though, Russ, to approve that as a piece of communication coming from the town to go external?
We can do that.
Okay.
Okay, we'll get something to you, Lucy. Thank you.
Do we have our
Yeah,
email?
we have an email, yes, we have it, yeah. Oh, we can do that. Thank
It's an
you.
easy one.
That's, yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else have a?
Well, can I report on the new,
Can I just go
No.
back first?
I had one question. I don't mean to go back to the BRC thing. I just want to get it clear because there was a timeline sort of associated with it. And I just had a question for Nico about, there was a member on the BRC, Corey, I didn't catch his last name.
Corey Stevenson.
Yeah, and he had some questions about the job description, and then as the discussion kind of went around, he decided to refrain from asking them, and he had asked that he didn't feel he could ask his questions, and he asked if the job description would be finalized this fall, and can they go back to discussing it then? And I don't really understand what that means in the sense that I was under the assumption that meeting on the 18th was like, we're not recommending it, we're done now with this piece. And I'm just confused as to why he was asking, can we discuss it later? And he never got an answer, by the way, so there was never any clear, what does that mean?
I can't speak for Corey, and I don't know why he wouldn't have got an answer from the chair. I mean,
But there's no process in there that we're just missing where they're going to go back to discussing our job description? Because he specifically said later this fall, and what is that? What is later this fall? Is that like when this goes to the select board? Is that what?
I'd have to go back, and I
Okay.
don't recollect that.
Okay.
It may be because they have so many full committee meetings.
But my understanding is, and again, I'm not a member of the BRC, I was sitting back here. My understanding, though, is that they had a copy of the job description, and it would have been the one that we worked on October 1st. that
Why did they think it
subsequently-
was not complete?
Yeah,
Because
so much,
it's done.
so much so that he said, I guess I can't ask my questions then because this is a draft, and it was yep, it's it fizzled there, and I really want to know what his questions were, quite frankly. I mean, I don't know how to get that information and figure that out. And again, if he was opening it up as like, we're going to be discussing this later, can we be part of that? Or can our chair be part of that? Or can you be part of it? Like, let's keep this conversation going if there's an opportunity to do that within that framework. If there's not, then we're done.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to go because I don't know what Corey was thinking. And I'm not gonna speak for him naturally.
Yeah.
But in terms of, who could speak to that? If you're asking if I can speak, I can only speak at a BRC meeting if the chair asks. As a select board member. I could raise my hand all day, but unless the chair, needs clarification from the select board, and chances are he asked the chair of the select board if she were there. But we don't talk. I mean, there was one time, I think it was the all-day meeting, there was one time that Chairwoman Corson was asked a specific question, and she got up to answer that question and speak. But other than that, the BRC deliberates amongst themselves and department heads. The select board are not involved.
So process-wise, there's no later this fall conversation about the sustainability coordinator position, as far as we know. That is not.
Unless we raise it at the deliberative
No, I mean,
budget.
the whole budget's gonna come before the select board in December, and the select board will have multiple conversations leading up to the public hearing in January. And
But that's a select board thing, that's not a BRC thing, because I'm just responding to what Corey seemed to have these questions, and are they gonna come up later?
Yeah,
Where are they gonna come up?
If Mr. Stevens asked, Chair Kelly to revisit something, that would be up to Chair
Okay.
Kelly.
So there is an
I
opportunity
can't
to do
answer
that? Okay.
I think how I understood that section in the context where it was being talked about of like, maybe this will come up next year, I understood it to be next fall, not this fall.
Oh, really? Okay.
He said this fall.
This
I don't know,
fall,
I was-
yeah.
I was like,
Okay. I was
really listening to it, I was like scrolling.
Okay, because my understanding was that it was over and that maybe we'll discuss it next year.
Can we invite him to this committee meeting? Is there an opportunity? I just would love to know what his questions were, like,
So I think there were quite a few questions, I think, from watching the video that
just
seemed
don't
like there were, things were missing or there were misunderstanding.
Yes.
And I did meet with the subcommittee and it was a very quick process because obviously they had a whole full day meeting that there were information, so they allocated like 5-10 minutes and that was it, and again,
Having sat there all day, though, I will say that this particular conversation was probably one of the longer ones. In terms of what they had to deliberate on all the general government. And it's an 8-hour meeting. And I will say that, sitting there through the 8 hours, this particular budget item line got more time than anything else. I mean, they discussed it thoroughly. Again, what they had in front of them to read, I don't know because I wasn't privy to that. But, there was a thorough discussion. And I know, Chair Kelly doesn't call for a vote until everybody's discussed what they were going to discuss. Jen, to your question, I don't remember specifically, what Corey asked, and I'd have to go back and look.
well, he didn't ask anything. He said he felt he couldn't because it was a draft and it was confirmed. Yes, it's in the queue still. There's a lot of moving pieces. This is still a draft. Again, back to this job description thing, which if we're going to move forward and keep doing our work on this, we need to know what's missing because it's confusing to us because we had so much support for
As I
what we had
recall,
to
one of
do.
the things that was missing was a gap analysis.
They don't need a gap analysis for that discussion, though.
Well, they wanted one.
I don't think that the job description, I mean, I think that was a part of it, but I think it's a bigger,
I think there's a red herring that keeps getting thrown in there after,
know.
asking a lot of sustainability coordinators in a lot of towns and getting laughed at when I brought it up. But I think my bigger concern was why they thought the job description was a draft when it wasn't, and what they think needed to be done with it. When it was done, it's been through the select board.
Well, that's what I was thinking. It'd be good to know what Corey had to say.
It's not how much time did they talk about it, but there's more of the, like you said, things that were clear misunderstandings, or what exactly did they have? Because there was clearly some lack of understanding, and even if they were told that there was, who told them it was a draft when it was done?
It was done, yeah.
So, yeah.
Again, having sat through
Yeah.
all the meetings, and I apologize for repeating myself, but, they've looked at 3 other personnel requests. And frankly, if there was a job description, and I'm pretty confident that I heard that there was a job description in front of, whether it said draft or not, they were presented a lot more information in writing than the other 3 personnel requests. So, I don't think that zeroing out that budget item line was because of a job description per se. I think they were looking at the total overall numbers, much like they were with the other 3 personnel requests. That's my interpretation, having sat through all of the meetings, not just that meeting.
I think the subcommittee's report, was that provided ahead of the BRC meeting, or was it provided then and there?
I'm not on the BRC, so I don't know what they had.
I don't know, when I was listening to it, it seemed like it was provided that morning because it had to come together quickly, because I know Nancy worked really hard to get it done in time for that. So I don't know that's what was interesting, is because that report is different than the conversation that took place. So it's just confusing as to why it wasn't recommended, like, specifically. It was sort of the conversation, then the report, and, did people really
We'll have time
factor
to-
that into their decision? And it's just, I'm new to this, so this is all just maybe, and like you said, this is an unusual case, and I know, people took it seriously for sure. I mean, there's no question. It's just, we want to go forward, and so how do we, pick
Well,
up the ball from here?
That's, to me, just listening to all this discussion tonight, that's, to me, for you to lead us to what are our next steps instead, because, we'll certainly follow through and follow up and bring it to the, make sure we attend the deliberative sessions with the select board and see if we can raise the opportunity again and make sure we speak to the select board, but we also have to be realistic, and if we want to try to achieve the charge and achieve the mission, we need to be working on plans B and C to help fulfill those things, and it doesn't mean we don't continue to pursue the select board, but we also have to be realistic, and if we can't, that they turn down a couple firefighter roles and another DPW person, is telling to maybe that there's just not the capacity to bring personnel into the town this year. And so we just have to be realists and move forward and keep an eye on the charge and move forward with the next plan, so.
So just to put things in perspective, and I really, I pause as to whether I should say this or not. I'm going to say it, but I'm doing so in that I don't want to build something up, but I'm going to use this as an example. 2 years ago, the fire department requested 2 firefighter additional personnel, and the Budget Recommendations Committee voted to not fund those 2 positions. And between the BRC and deliberative session in February, the Board of Selectmen voted 3-2 to put the 2 firefighters into the budget. So again, I'm not saying that to give you an illusion that could happen, but that is the process. So it does go to the select board next.
But are we able to present at that board meeting, at that select board meeting, or is it just a decision that they make following their internal communication and
And again, I'm not
conversation?
going to speak for Chairwoman Corson, and I've sat through, budget meetings over the last 3 years, and there's been 3 different chairs of the select board each time. So it's really, the chair of the select board will, make a determination. But in January, and I think, Russ, it's the third Tuesday in January, that's a public hearing. And during the public hearing, the select board goes through each article in the warrant, and the public has an opportunity to get up to speak.
So let's not spend another hour on this. I agree. We should go ahead as a volunteer committee, like the tree team, like the energy committee, like the river committee. And then when the next deliberative session comes along, pursue it further.
So I think I'll clarify with Chairwoman Corson to see whether we are able to present anything when they.
I think you just want to correct the
Well,
things that
public.
were discussed is incorrectly.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Can I make a request that we get a copy of the job description that was whatever state that's in? I don't know that we as a
the
committee
final one?
have that, whatever draft it's in now.
Well,
I
Russ
just-
said it was finalized.
But where is it?
This 2nd of October.
On the website?
No, it's not on the website.
Where is
Surely
the job?
people who presented it have a copy of it.
I don't have a copy of it in my possession that has the most recent grammatical edits.
I emailed it
to-
out with the agenda.
Did it? It's in the last agenda from this meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Right. But we move on.
Yeah, okay, so, all right. I've got it. Next on the agenda is the Sustainably Fair Planning Subcommittee update.
Do you want to give
Who wants to
update,
take?
Robin?
Oh. Okay. We've got 2 potential dates for Film Festival Fair, Sustainability Film Festival and Fair. The 24th through 26th of January, and I don't remember the numbers for March as a backup, but it's the first weekend in March as a backup dates. Probably with on Saturday events, different panels, and we haven't completely fleshed it out, but different groups and along the lines of educating and issues and stuff like that. But then also the film festival, sort of like if you go anywhere in the country to a film festival, there's multiple venues, and it's nicer if they're within walking distance, and we've had a few places that have already volunteered to help host and show a film and show a screening. So I'd say, I think, got two that I know of for sure, and two more that I think are maybes for just venues outside of town hall, but then town hall being kind of the main kickoff place. And we've confirmed that the last weekend in January is available.
Okay.
Did you know
We
about March?
haven't confirmed that.
Oh, was it? Oh,
No,
okay.
We have an application that we have to fill out for town hall so that we can reserve it. And on that application, we have to give the exact dates, so we need to decide, whether this event's gonna be a full 2 days or 1.5 days. And, yeah, then reconfirm, because I had asked her about the end of February instead of the end of January. So I'll just go tomorrow and ask Parks and Rec.
So the dates we're looking at is January 24th was a Friday in the evening, and one of the ideas out there was just a kickoff evening thing and a show, not like all day set. And then Saturday, most of the day, and then maybe a shorter window on Sunday, especially if there's, you know, like a very
Question,
popular
does
film that we do.
I'm sorry. Does the fair include I'm a little confused. Does the fair include the film festival, or are those two separate
Yes.
things?
No,
Yes.
Okay, all right, I
yeah,
got it.
Film Festival, Sustainability Fair.
And then the second dates, just so they're on the calendar, would be the 6th through the 8th of March. And again, it's not like all day, every day, but just that time frame of Friday evening through probably all day Saturday and maybe a little window on Sunday.
I think since we need to get this application in so that we can reserve town hall, if we could decide tonight what the actual days of the event are going to be. Are they going to be a Friday night and Saturday? Are they going to be Friday night, Saturday, Sunday?
I think we take that whole window, we just decide if it's going to be into January or early March.
Well, because I think it depends on reserving town hall too. You can't, you know, when you reserve it on the application,
Right.
it's not fair to reserve it and then other people can't use it, you know, if we have,
But I think what we've sketched out is Friday night, Saturday, and the piece of Sunday. And we know the
yeah,
top.
but we didn't
we-
confirm the Sunday part and we didn't include.
Well,
Yeah, I think that's
We
what
haven't
we-
confirmed anything.
No, but I think that's
we
worth
need
getting
to-
the
yeah.
committee's
Yeah.
thinking on. One of the discussions that happened was, last year was a success. It was short notice, but it went off well, and perhaps we'd like to do a little bit more. My chief concern would be just to bite off more than we could chew. I'm okay to stretch it out a little bit, but it's a lot of work to make it come off well. And so one thinking was, either just a little bit Friday night and all day Saturday, or all day Saturday and a little bit of Sunday, but not, it would be quite a bit to that. So, but again, everybody should speak to that, so.
Because ideally, we'd like to get this application in tomorrow.
Well, I'm just thinking if we reserve the window and if we scale it, like cut out Friday night or something like that, we can let.
But that's what I'm saying, if we're reserving town hall, like, that's fine with other venues, but if we're reserving town hall, we don't want to request, the 24th to the 26th, and then not use the 26th when some other group potentially could want
Right.
to use the 26th.
So maybe go for the Friday night and then Saturday. So you have quite a sort of, a
Do you need a
substantial-
motion?
Yeah, I mean, I would like that, yeah.
Well, should we decide between
So
January and
moved.
March?
Well, I think the weekend might not matter as
Okay.
much as, it doesn't matter.
Well,
to
it means
people
what we got to
that-
put on the paper.
That we have the end of January versus the beginning of March based on the availability of town hall. I mean, if any dates are of a concern, then certainly bring those up.
So you wanted to include that first choice would be end of January, and if not, then the first week of,
Yeah, those are the two
First
weekends that
weekend
we
of March.
determined were the best based on things that were happening with voting and just school vacations and so forth. So those are the two.
Avoiding the Super Bowl and everybody's
Yeah.
spring breaks and winter vacation and
Would people-
PEA spring break.
Would people
I know,
come out
it's
in
PEA spring break is in March, but.
Please, go ahead.
Okay, so I don't know too much about the sustainability fair. This is like a yearly thing, right?
Well, there's-
No, we did it as just a bunch of town people last year, as volunteers, and Bob Glowacki in the past, who is Exeter TV, has done a film festival, and he actually did it at PEA.
Okay.
But it's never been, those are both one-ofs at this point. But that was one of the things people were interested in us doing, and so it's in the,
All right, so it is, so it's here, it's in the town hall.
well,
Across the
town
road.
hall, and then there's other venues that have been interested in showing films, and PEA is one of them. The activities director was interested, but we haven't talked dates yet.
Okay.
But the idea was to have things that are walkable, which is a sustainable, walkable
Yeah.
distance. So, and there's a church downtown that said, hey, you can use us, and, you know, one of the clubs, and so, yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to.
Okay, so are we opting for January or March?
Well, she said she wanted January as first choice and March as a backup.
The date doesn't matter as much as to me, as.
The length.
The length,
Duration, yeah.
but, yeah, unless anybody has strong feelings that, no, we should not hold this in January, or no, we should not hold this in March.
Yeah. To me, it seems
Well,
like.
I put the motion up, there was no second.
I second.
All right, then is there other objections?
What exactly is the
What
motion?
did we motion?
I didn't know
It
what
was-
motion.
She was, my understanding was, what I seconded at least, was that we're Friday night and Saturday, not on Sunday.
Okay,
And that you wanted, this is a motion to have you make your reservations that, as you described them.
right, okay.
Now, one of the critiques we had last time was because it was on Saturday, lots of people with kids were like, hey, Saturday's the busy day when we have all our stuff. If only you had done something on Sunday, which is part of why we.
I thought you meant Saturday evening, but maybe
All day Saturday, it would be all day
Saturday,
Saturday.
all day
or-
Saturday, all day Saturday, okay.
So what we did
But
last
Unity
year was
Team
all
had,
day.
Had pretty good success with this sort of a thing not too long ago, down in the city hall.
And I think we are seeing a lot of towns doing sustainability fairs. There was one in Lee last week, and Durham is looking to do one, Dover. So I think there is.
I think also
Portsmouth.
for events in a town, Saturday usually is the more, Sunday is more
Family
the
time.
family time, getting ready for
Okay,
Monday.
I agree.
all right, let's vote.
All right.
Okay.
Vote for Friday, Saturday? Yeah?
Yeah,
Aye, yep.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right.
I'll submit it.
I'm conscious of the time. This is a very long meeting. A quick update, Bev, on Parks and Recs.
yeah, this can be very quick. Greg Beeson, the Director of Parks and Rec, and his assistant Melissa Roy, were very generous with their time in describing what was going to happen. The plans are to renovate the old facilities at Hampton Road to include a new multi-generational center with multi-purpose spaces. The additional park outside will include tennis and pickleball courts, walking trails, athletic fields with tiered grass seating, plenty of parking space, possibly a dog park, which, he said with a smile, would provide a source of fuel for methane gas lights. 2 small wetlands there would be managed in accordance with EPA regulations. The building to be constructed will look into using low-flow toilets with possibly recycled rainwater. All grass will be maintained with an organic composting tea. And by the way, he said they have been using organic landscaping practices for quite a number of years here, way ahead of Riverwoods. Okay, all exterior and interior lighting will use LED bulbs. And the new rec building will have an efficient HVAC system with radiant floor level heating, but did I mean that? No AC will be used no AC will be used in the gym. The other part of the building will have AC. The gym will have drier air provided with dehumidifiers. There was a concern, as I understood it, not to overheat the gym. And the gym will be lighted from above with glass solar tubing, something I know nothing about, but it sounds good. Further plans are for an airtight building envelope, energy-efficient windows, and a high-efficiency boiler are being developed, for which a grant from Unitil is available. They were happy to have learned. Solar panels will be considered for the westward-facing sloping roof. Suggestions from the public for further energy efficiency ideas are welcomed. And again, as with the rehab of the library, we really could not ask for a more eco-friendly planning and outlook. And I think these things need to be publicized, and I think Exeter needs to be congratulated. They've already put in solar arrays. I'm thinking of trying to have Riverwoods visit the new wastewater, if it's possible, plant, just so that they can learn about it, and there might be some publicity that could come from that. But I think that we really need to publicize these things. And then my own question is, can this, since the town is moving in this direction, can this affect the planning and permitting process? And can this be known that the town is looking for this kind of new building and major rehabbing? And by the way, Riverwoods is planning a whole new nursing lodge at the Woods.
Well, Greg's awesome. That's good.
Bev, could you send the notes to me? Because I'd like to attach them at the end of the meeting minutes.
I can't hear you, my dear.
Could you send the notes that you have?
Yes, I've already sent them in once, but I'll be glad to give you this copy.
Okay, that would be great, because then I'll just attach
Just
them at the end.
ignore those few notes that I put in the bottom.
Okay, just any other business? Just one thing I just wanted to add is there was a brief meeting with myself with Mr. Fox, who does composting, and the Economic Development Director. We had a meeting the other day looking at possibilities, which would be amazing if it actually kicked off, sort of townwide composting. So as a back step to that sort of aim, I have invited Mr. Fox and Sarah DeWitt, who's involved in the local school, trying to get composting at the school. And also there's been Mr. Fox and with Lainey and Lou involved in producing a amazing video. So I've invited them at the next meeting on December the 3rd to present that video and get the word out about composting and then get the ball rolling on how we can encourage more people to do that in town. So,
Thank you.
so just to make that.
Awesome, thanks.
Anyone, any other business? Yes.
Yeah, I just want to let you know briefly here, University of New Hampshire Sustainability Institute offers a sustainability fellowship. And just to read from their, materials, UNH Sustainability Fellowships pair exceptional students from across the U.S. with partner organizations throughout New England to work on transformative sustainability initiatives each summer. It's a 10-week fellowship program spanning over 12 weeks. In 2020, it will be, next summer, it's May 26th to August 14th. Fellows are like graduate level or recently graduated, and some like exceptional undergraduate students for these fellowships. It's a full-time, on-site, full-time with organizations. There is a $5,000 host partner investment, and the town would be the host. The proposals are due on December 2nd. That's why I'm telling you, probably before your next meeting. I already intended to apply. I mean, I went through, was looking at, I'll submit a couple of proposals for this. One of them would probably be with the social media and outreach I was looking at today. Greenhouse gas inventories and implementation strategy, sustainability video, or a combination of both. I'll also, after tonight, I'll look at our charge and make sure that, maybe curtails some of that, a proposal or something like that, because there's no limit on proposals. I'll probably do a couple anyway. So just wanted to let you know, FYI, that if anyone has any interest in knowing more about it or adding to that or talking to me about it, feel free to, email or call me. But it will be December 2nd when I have to submit it, so.
That's a great program. It's one we brought up a few times, including at the select board meeting when we briefed. And I talked to the lead about that, and they actually had more students that wanted to do it last year than were applied for. So they,
Yeah.
and I guess it's gone up, because I think when I briefed the select board last spring or whenever it was 3,800, so it's gone up a little bit. I think it's a pretty good deal for the amount of
Yeah.
work you
I mean,
get.
that can fluctuate year to year
Yeah.
with competitiveness, and then you have to match. I mean, we
Yeah.
want to match, I'd be involved in the interview process. You want to match the
Right.
student's skills with the project you want.
Right.
Yeah.
And just maybe having more students you might not have
Right.
one to do your project, but yes, I mean, it's something that, it looks great, and, I'll be moving ahead with it.
Yeah, when we researched that last spring, they said they have people that can do all the crunching the numbers for doing like your carbon assessment and your baseline. They just said, just get, all the departments, get your data, your records together, and then the students, they're already trained and going through it all and,
Yeah, I
Doing
talked
the-
to
yeah.
Megan Carney at
Yeah,
UNH
okay.
about the different
Yeah.
strategies, that's why, so, understood, thank you.
yeah.
Can I just add to that? Looking at the proposal for the grant, task 7 stated that the Sustainability Advisory Committee is interested in applying for a UNH Sustainability Fellow for 2020. RPC will prepare this application.
But they have to do it by December 2nd. But we
Yeah.
knew that, last year it was December 31st, so they moved
Well,
it
it's
even
good to
earlier.
know if they are
Yeah.
going after that.
I have no
But
idea.
are they providing, I haven't heard from them.
So
if
I'm
I
just
do,
saying that's task
that's
number
great.
7 in that.
It's great, though, that you brought that up, because I'll contact, RPC.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, Julie wrote that, so I'll contact Julie about that to make sure we're all on the same page.
One of the things is the grant is coming in January, this is due December 2nd.
Right.
Exactly,
I
that's-
think when we put that in there, we thought the grant was coming in the fall, and that's why we wanted that incorporated in, so someone could apply, and then now that it's in January, there's a disconnect on the dates.
Yes.
There's another date, December 4. There's a conference, tips, tools, and perspectives, paying for climate adaptation and resilience. I'm planning to go. I forwarded this to the River Committee, thinking some of them might be interested. There is a New Hampshire Floods Hazard Handbook, which they are making available. Somebody in town might want to at least acquaint themselves with that. I'm sure I can come back with a copy. If the secretary wants that info, there it is.
Okay,
Madam Chair?
yes.
We jumped around a bit, but back to the Clean Energy Forum
Okay.
at the high school. On behalf of the Select Board, thank you very much for extending the invitation. It's also the evening of the BRC CIP night, so we have that conflict, but we didn't want you to think that, we weren't going because we weren't interested. We just have that conflict, but thank you for the invitation.
All right.
Do you know, is XTV covering the forum?
I don't
That'd
know.
be great to watch.
I don't know.
That'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Great.
Yeah, it's at the high school, so it should be all set up with their channel 98 or whatever it is. Yeah.
I have to leave.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Shall I close the meeting? Yes. Yes.
Aye.
The second? Yes.
Second, third.
9:30. Thank you very much.